What's going on? What's going on? I hope you guys are well. I've got somebody coming on the show today, guys. So what's going on? What's going on? I hope you guys are well. Just waiting for you guys. Somebody coming on the show today, guys. So get your questions in. Get your questions in. What's going on? I hope you guys are well. Just waiting for you guys coming on the show today, guys. So get your questions in. Get your questions in. What's going on? Hi, how's it going? Hello, brother. How's it going, Danny? You good? Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Danny? Can you guys hear me? Hello, Ramiro. How are you? You hear me? Can you hear me? How are you? Echo, what? Echo, can't you hear me? I'm getting somebody on, though. I'm getting somebody on. Can you hear me? Well, very, yeah, you good. Yeah, I'm good. Can you hear me though? Clear. Yes, we can. Okay, that's fine. I'm just getting somebody to come on the show, and then we'll talk some boxing. We'll talk some boxing. How are you guys anyway? I hope you guys are well. Any questions? You got any questions you want to ask me before we get our guest on the show? Yes, Hatchie Boxer, I hope you're well. Take me home. Take me home. United Road. How are you, brother? I hope you're well. How's it going, Ray? I'm good. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. I'm well, thanks. Yeah.
How are you keeping?
I'm doing well. I'm keeping well. How about yourself?
Yeah, good, mate. Good, mate. Not bad. Not bad. I was trying to get you on the channel for a while, but you know what it was? I was struggling to get like good software that I can get you on. I wanted it to be clear because I didn't want to do something where, you know, the subscribers couldn't really hear.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I want to say you've got a good platform thing going on here. You know, you're getting the fans in. Brother. You're getting the good questions in. You're getting really good debates. So just keep it up. Keep up the good work. It's nice and clear, and people can hear you. So I've had a few friends come in. They've seen you. You've seen my friend Luke and a couple of other mates. So being really impressive. Yeah. So just keep it up, man.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate it. It really means a lot. Let's get stuck into it. Let's get stuck into it. Guys, can you hear Ray? Can you hear Ray loud and clear? I think they can anyway. They'll let me know if they can't. Yeah. So obviously we've got news coming out that Terence Crawford's going to be involved in a huge pay-per-view fight next week. It's going to be announced next week. Who do you think it's going to be?
It looks as though it's all pointing towards Pacquiao, doesn't it?
Yeah. I hope so.
That's who it's looking towards. I think if he gets that fight with Pacquiao, what a fight that will be. I know his last fight was 2 years ago, wasn't it, against Thurman?
Yeah.
Pacquiao, he's a warrior, and you still have something left.
Yeah.
You know me, bro. I'd much rather it was against Spence. Because that needs to be settled sooner rather than later. But then there's people. My other argument is I've heard people say it could be Porter.
It could be. Yeah.
So for me, you're a Pacquiao or Porter, but the Pacquiao fight, what a terrific fight that would be.
You know what? I think in terms of profile, because we all know Crawford hasn't got the biggest profile, unfortunately. It's sad that a guy with that kind of talent well known. Really, should be like look at some of the big names we've got in the UK, like Joshua, Fury, Khan. Look how big their names are.
Yeah.
Right, compared to Crawford, who's, let's be honest, Crawford's a lot better than those guys. But he's not got the profile, he's not got the name, and he should do. He's that good, he should do. And
do you think that comes down to how he's been promoted, though?
Absolutely, it comes down to promotion. I don't know what it is with American boxers. Tell me, American boxer that is apart from Mayweather and the ones that we know, but who's a household name in America from the American boxers today?
I'll be straight with you. That's a good question, and it tends to be more the Mexican Americans. I can't, because if you look at Spence, he's not a household name. Wilder, despite being the WBC heavyweight champion at the time, wasn't. You know, you go through the divisions. You know, the Charlo brothers, they're not household names. You know, you can go all the way down. There isn't that many. Even when Andre Ward was at his pomp, still wasn't well known. I think that's another issue for America. I think the way they're going, boxing at the minute it doesn't have the same pull as what it used to. Certainly when me and you were growing up watching fights. But you're right. I think the big draws in America are your foreign fighters coming over, or your Mexican Americans, your Latinos. Your actual American fighters aren't getting the big draws, and it's a shame because you're right. They are very, very talented. I mean, for me, Crawford Spence is the best technical fight for the purists out there. It's take away Joshua
Fury. Yeah,
that's the next best one for me.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Spence and Crawford is. I think it's the best matchup in boxing in terms of guys in the top 5 pound for pound. Because Fury and Joshua, don't get me wrong, here in the UK, we know how big that is. They're too big and they're massive stars. But in terms of the best matchup in boxing, like for the purists, I don't think it gets any better than Spence Crawford.
No, it doesn't. Because that fight is what I would call a pendulum fight. It can swing either way. You can see the momentum going back and forward in that fight. You know, there's different styles. Crawford can bring it. He can switch hit. I believe Spence is the bigger man and probably the harder hitter. But when it comes down to pure boxing ability, you might lean towards Crawford. So there's so many different angles you can go through in that fight. I mean, I back Spence, but my worry is because of neither of them have been promoted well in their careers. They're going down the money avenue, which goes back to the original question about who's Crawford going to be fighting, and that's why I think we're going on the Pacquiao route. And that's why I think that fight could be delayed. But certainly, I think that if those type of fights get made in America, I think you could see a big difference in terms of those guys becoming household names.
One of my subscribers says, Hatchy Boxer says, honestly, the thing with Crawford, in my opinion, imagine if Crawford was a villain like Floyd, a big star. What do you make of that?
I think that's an interesting point because if you look at Floyd when he left Bob Arum, that was the way he was going, and Bob Arum, with all his experience, he didn't see that in man. You know, he didn't see how Floyd can manipulate the hip hop sort of like Black American market. I think could Crawford do that? Possibly. He's got that going on. He's definitely got the ability to do it. But that might be the only way for Crawford to become a household name for him to promote himself, you know, and to exploit that market, or to go over to our promoter, Eddie Hearn.
Yeah. But if he goes over to Eddie Hearn, just say he goes over to DAZN, all of the top welterweights are with PBC. So doesn't that make no sense? If, for example, just say he gets out of his contract from Bob Arum.
Yeah.
What do you think? Do you think he should become a free agent, sign with another promoter? Bearing in mind, if he signs with DAZN, all the welterweights are with PBC. What do you think that would be the right move? Although Hearn, in my opinion, would do a better job in terms of promoting and making him a big star because he's brilliant at that. But do you think that would be? What do you think Crawford should do?
I think personally, he should look at getting himself out of contract that's financially viable for him, and then exploring these options and maybe going with somebody with DAZN. I know we know that the top welterweights are with PBC, but with the money that DAZN throw, I mean, money talks, and we've seen Al Heyman, he does. I mean, look at the opportunities he got for James DeGale when he got him fighting fighters on different on different networks. And I think what he'll do is Al Heyman, he always has a situation where his fighters come off with the best, either the home advantage or they come out financially on top. So I think they'll be able to work something out because the zone have got the money behind them in order to do that.
Do you think? Let me ask you about a matchup. What do you think happens in a Crawford Pacquiao fight? How do you think that fight plays out? Who would you favor in that fight?
I'd go for Crawford. I'd go for Crawford being the fresher of the two. But I can see Pacquiao with his speed getting the better of the early rounds. But also it depends on what stance Crawford comes out with. If he starts as an orthodox or whether he starts as a southpaw, I think that could dictate how the fight goes in terms of whether it's, Crawford gets a late stoppage, because I wouldn't rule that out in terms of a TKO, or whether it's going to go to points. But I for me, see Crawford winning that one.
10 years ago?
No, I mean, Pacquiao, when he was at his pomp, I think we're going to look back and think, wow, we were lucky in our generation to see Pacquiao and to see Mayweather. We all know that fight was too late. But Pacquiao, you look at when he fought Cotto, Margarito. The De La Hoya fight was just a start. When he fought Hatton, the knockout of Hatton, I don't think anyone really, aside from Floyd, could have lived with Pacquiao in those days.
Do you think he would have beaten Floyd if he had fought him in 2010 when he was dismantling Cotto and beating those guys up?
No, because of just Floyd's style. I think what would have happened is perhaps Floyd, he would have been more susceptible if Floyd countered him. That's what happened. I'm not saying Floyd would have stopped them, but I think he would have countered a lot more. I think what happened in the fight that we got to saw was Floyd really slowed the pace down, which is what Floyd does, because he's the ring general. He controls it with from the center of the ring, and he does what he does. But I think Manny's pace for the early rounds, you would have won them if Floyd would have taken over. It would have been shades of like the De La Hoya Mayweather fight, but instead of De La Hoya perhaps winning 5 of those rounds, I would have said, Manny would have won the first 3 and then Floyd would have taken over.
You know what? I want to get your opinion on this. You know how like everyone's saying Joshua and Fury's the biggest fight of our era? I find that very difficult when Mayweather and Pacquiao fought 5 years ago. Let's be honest, these two guys, I know it's Joshua Fury is a big fight for us here in the UK, but Mayweather and Pacquiao, for me, are 2 of the greatest fighters of all time. Like, there's no debate about that. They are 2 of the greatest fighters of all time. Do you think there's no fight right now, even Joshua Fury included, that can trump that? I know the fight wasn't great, but do you think there's any fight right now that comes anywhere near that kind of hype and the money that fight made?
Do you know what it is, Imran? You've hit the nail on the head again, because what you've talked about there is the spectacle. That fight was a spectacle, and it was worth every penny it made in terms of revenue. So to answer your question, I don't think a fight's going to come close to that. Not in our generation, because what you're talking about is 2 Hall of Famers. It goes back to the only one I can think of recently, and I'm saying it because obviously he just died, was when Tommy Hearns fought Marvin Hagler. Because that war, that was clearly a better fight. That was because you saw 2 prime Hall of Famers, Hall of Famers going at it. With Mayweather Pacquiao, it wasn't at the prime, we know that, but it's still 2 future Hall of Famers going at it. And that was a huge spectacle. Fans all over the world, casual fans, were wanting to know about this one. I think Joshua Fury's more for the purists. I think if the first fight was in the UK, you would get more of a appeal to the casuals, because they would all want a nice little trip to Wembley. But with the first one being abroad, I think it's going to be more for the purists. So for me, I don't think there's going to be many fights topping Mayweather Pacquiao.
Richard Brown's asking, Ray, how will Pacquiao be after 2 years out and in his early 40s?
I mean, to be fair, it's how at the lower weights, age is more of a problem than at the heavier weights. I
Yeah.
mean, you saw it with the likes of Povetkin in the first fight.
Yeah.
You also saw it with Klitschko. I mean, when he came and he fought, albeit he didn't have as much time out when he fought Anthony Joshua, he was moving around the ring like a middleweight.
Yeah.
I think Pacquiao with that amount of time out, it will affect him. It will affect him. But I still think with his ability, it wouldn't hinder him too much to the point where I don't think you would look at him and go, he's going to be a shot fighter. Yeah, his speed may not be the same. His certain reflexes may not be the same. But what I always say to people is the last thing for a boxer to go is the punch, is the power. And Manny, we know, still has power at that weight. Ask Thurman.
And there's definitely a bit of question marks over Crawford's chin as well. He was hurt against Kavaliauskas, and early on he was hurt against Gamboa. And let's be honest, I know Manny's 43, but he's on a different level to those guys.
Yeah. His power and his accuracy and his timing of his shots as well. Yeah. So if he gets some good sparring in, I mean, yeah, his age might be, but Manny's always looked after himself.
Yeah.
And another example, albeit he was a lot younger. Remember when Mikey Garcia came back?
Yeah.
You know, he was out for 2.5 years and he had never been away.
Yeah, he was fantastic.
Yeah, so for some boxers, they can get the timing back, you know, relatively quickly. With an eight-weight world champion, I think he'll give a good account of himself.
Ray, I want to ask you about the weekend's action. We saw Dillian Whyte stop Povetkin in quite emphatic in style. Really, it was quite one-sided. Yeah. You know, Povetkin looked a shell of himself. Really. What did you make of the main event?
I thought it was a great performance from Dillian Whyte. It was a great performance. I know on the other hand, Povetkin, you know, we were on about Pacquiao there. His reflexes didn't look there. His legs didn't look there. People will talk about long COVID and the effects of that.
Yeah.
But the way I see it is, Whyte was beating him in the first fight and he got caught because Whyte, he stands very upright. His right hand's a little bit low. He leaves himself open to a left-hand shot. And Povetkin, with all his amateur experience, and he's only lost to Joshua and Klitschko. I think people forget that as well, you know. I think with that timing, I wouldn't have put it past him to catch him with that shot, and it was a beautiful shot. So in that respect, it didn't surprise me to see Whyte do what he did again, because that's literally what he did. But he instead of last time where he knocked him down twice and he probably wanted to ease off a bit, he didn't want to go all in. He upped his game. His jab was on point. You could tell, you know, his coach Harrod had been involved with Lennox Lewis because that was like a Lennox Lewis type jab. And I think if he keeps that, he's going to be a problem. So I thought it was a good fight.
What's next for Dillian Whyte then? Obviously we know Joshua and Fury look like they're tied up. They're going to fight. Where does Dillian Whyte go next? Who does he fight? Because there's all sharks all over the place. There's Joyce, there's Wilder, there's Ruiz. A lot of people would maybe have him an underdog in all of those fights. Where do you think he was?
I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because you've got that category, haven't you, man, where you've got the likes of Ruiz, you've got Wilder. I mean, he's fought Parker, but you've got Joyce in there as well. And I think with Dillian Whyte's style, he brings it. So I would like to see him against Wilder. I think that one's a genuine 50-50. For me, in my opinion, I think Ruiz beats him. I think for me, out of that little group, I think Ruiz is probably the best.
Yeah. Well, out of you think Ruiz beats Wilder?
Yeah. Because I think defensively, Ruiz is quick. He can be in and out of range. He gets his hands up. He can unload combinations. And because, see, the thing with the heavyweights is they can all hit. They can all hit. So obviously, you've got your one-punch KO artists, your Wilder and your Joshua. But then you've got those like Fury and, well, more so Ruiz, who are relying on the speed. And sometimes it's the punches that you don't see that can do the damage. They're the ones that can knock you out. So Wilder's always going to have a puncher's chance in his fights, but I favour Ruiz in that. I think he's got more skill, the technical ability. He's got the heart, and he can do some damage on the inside.
With Wilder Whyte, I favour. I know you said it was a 50-50. I do think Wilder beats Whyte. Okay. I think a lot of people say that Fury backed Wilder up and Wilder was on the back foot. He can't fight on the back foot. But people don't understand how good Tyson Fury is. That he's not just wildly. Like, I don't think Dillian Whyte has that kind of skill where, and remember, Fury's a lot taller than Whyte as well.
Yeah.
He's got a longer reach. Wilder's going to have against guys that are smaller than him, he starched them really badly. Like, I'm talking, he's put them out. I don't know whether that's a right fight for Dillian Whyte. Plus, one thing about Wilder is that whatever we say about Wilder, he made a lot of excuses that, we found ridiculous here in the UK and everywhere, really. I know he has fanboys over in America that, it doesn't matter what he does. They'll back him up.
Yeah, that's true.
But to be honest with you, I rate Wilder very highly. I know he's not the greatest boxer and hasn't got the greatest skills, but that makes what he's been doing even more remarkable for me. The fact that he hasn't got the greatest skills and he was literally wiping guys. I know people talk about his opponents and the fact that he hasn't been fighting top level opponents, but let's be honest. When we talk looking at it from a neutral standpoint, if you put Wilder in with a lot of the heavyweights, the ones that people want to see him fight, the top 10 guys, none of us will be picking against Wilder against those. Very few, like you said, you pick Ruiz, but apart from maybe Ruiz, Joshua, Fury, who else would you be picking against Wilder?
That's a very good point. Wilder would start as the favourite because it's not. When I say puncher's chance, I mean let's get it right. I mean he will go down as one of the best punchers in the heavyweight division ever. Yeah. The guy's got phenomenal power for somebody that just hovers around at 16 stone, which is small for a heavyweight. Yeah, it is, and I think you've got a good point about Fury, but then Fury, he made himself 19 stone. He wasn't as light as when he was in the first fight. Yeah, and he did use his strength in that fight.
Yeah.
I think the reason why I lean towards 50-50 fight in terms of Whyte is, I think I don't think Whyte will just park himself in front of him. And I think he'll tighten up a bit defensively. Whereas you look at Wilder, he didn't make the adjustments in the second fight, is what I would have thought he would have done for the Fury fight. You see what I mean? As Fury clearly made some adjustments, obviously. I don't think Wilder made too many adjustments. He might do now that he's had the defeat. Yeah. But we've seen Whyte make little adjustments every single time and improve. So that's why I think at least this time, if you asked me this question in maybe 2 years ago, I would have said heavily in favour of Wilder. For the same reasons you said, you can't help but, I mean, he got the WBC. It's no joke belt to have. And you're right, because of his, he gets his windmill style. He was knocking people clean out, not just hurt. He was knocking them clean out.
They were having bits on the floor. Do you know what I mean? Literally, it was that bad.
Yeah, I mean, people at one point had it 50-50 between him and Anthony Joshua.
Yeah.
And it still could well be, because we know Joshua perhaps isn't the best on the inside, and for a big heavyweight, he's stamina, and he's got his issues as well. So you're right, but that's why I would say it's a 50-50 fight between Wilder and Whyte.
One fight I want to see, Ray, is if this fight doesn't happen, I think it would be, the boxing fans would be robbed, is Wilder v Joshua. Like, I can't, like, when I think about it, when I match these two up, I just think this fight's going to deliver. I think there's going to be an explosive knockout. Someone's going to be put away in emphatic fashion. Yeah. Both of them are vulnerable. Both of them we've seen hurt. And I just think I think Wilder's a bit more explosive, whereas like he could just literally hit you with the right hand and you could be asleep. And one of them's going to go in that fight. I just think that is such a great matchup. And I'm so frustrating that fight didn't happen, because I think it's another fight that we look back on, like maybe Spence Crawford right now, that we look back at and think, how has this fight not happened? How is this fight not happening? This fight may never happen.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Wilder is because of we've got the undisputed fight, as we call it, potentially coming up. That may not happen as well. But Wilder could very much fall into what I call the who needs him club, because he's so dangerous. If you are on your way up and you're very close to having a world title, or you've got a world title and you want another one, why would you risk it against Deontay Wilder, who, as you rightly saying, could spot you out? That fight would be a terrific fight. But both of them have got tremendous power. Joshua can knock you out with either hand. Joshua's probably got a bit more strings to his bow in terms of he can box.
Yeah.
But Joshua's vulnerable. I don't think Joshua's improved that much in terms of his ability to fight on the inside. I think as well, we've seen that Deontay Wilder can be bullied, and Anthony Joshua's strong. So if Anthony Joshua improved his inside game, I think that would add to that fight as well. But it's a terrific fight, and it's not going to go the distance, that fight. And I still think it could happen. It would depend on the outcome of the Fury Joshua fights, but I wouldn't rule it out.
Hatchy Boxer says Joshua a few years back would have fought Wilder toe to toe, but the Joshua of today will move a lot and not engage as much. In my opinion, he has changed his style a little. I think. What do you think?
I think he's become more wary. And I think what it is now is he's probably thinking, although I've got the power to hurt people and blast them out, if they take my best, like Ruiz did, I'm vulnerable myself. So I don't think he's gone to the point where Klitschko did, where Vladimir Klitschko completely changed his style under Emmanuel Stewart. I just think Joshua's a bit wary and he's got more of a plan B. That's what I would say.
Do you think if Joshua gets... I feel Joshua eventually is going to be dragged to that dark place again. Sometime, and maybe it might be against Fury.
Yep.
How do you think he'll react? Because I personally, I got a lot of stick from some AJ fans because they thought I'm being harsh. But I see a vulnerability in Joshua. I feel like Joshua, he's mentally not that killer that he used to be. He's more wary, like you said, of being hit. Do you think that Ruiz fight has had a massive impact on him psychologically? Or is it the case where he got embarrassed in that fight, where he got knocked down and humiliated? Because let's be honest, he was humiliated by a guy that a lot of people were not happy that he was even fighting because of, Ruiz's size and his shape. And he got humiliated and he's thinking, I don't want to go to that dark place. I don't want to go to that place. I don't want to go through that humiliation. Because remember, the bigger you are, right? When you fall, the more people that are going to be criticizing you.
Yeah. I think you're right, bro. I think if it had been Wilder that did that to him, I don't think he'd be embarrassed as much, because you can see well, Wilder's such a great puncher. I think scarred him. I think scarred him psychologically. I think it has. He's took an unbeaten record. It was Andy Ruiz who he was supposed to just walk over, introduce himself to the American fans. I mean, look at it. He's not exactly jumping the box in America again. So for that reason, I doubt the Fury fight would take place there. But I think as well, that's where it comes down to his coaches. You got Ron McCracken in the corner. He's added that Angel Fernandez. This is what they're going to have to develop. They talk about boxing being 90% psychological. Joshua's really going to have to up his game psychologically, because Fury will take him to places where he doesn't want to go. And I think if you're going to prosper in this game in the heavyweights, you're going to have to be comfortable with the uncomfortable. And Fury will make it very uncomfortable.
Fight Gamer says here, Wilder's right hand is quick. Joshua won't be able to move out the way. What do you make of that?
I think he can. Because I think Joshua can counter. He's got a good left hook of his own. I think sometimes it's the way Wilder throws the right hand. We all give him stick sometimes and say, oh, it's a windmill. But it's the same one he caught Fury with late on which nearly knocked him out. But like I said earlier, sometimes it's the punches you don't see which do the damage. If Wilder telegraphs his punches, Joshua can counter them.
Yeah, I agree. Adam here says Wilder beats AJ. Who beats Fury? Who beats Wilder? So Wilder beats AJ. AJ who beats Fury. Fury who beats Wilder. What do you make of that?
I mean, styles make fights, don't they?
Yeah,
you know, it's you get that a lot in boxing. You get a certain fighter losing to, say, fighter A losing to B, but then A might beat C or get beat off C. I personally think out of that trio, Fury would beat Joshua.
Yeah, I agree, yeah.
I think AJ would beat Wilder.
Yeah.
I think AJ would beat Wilder.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, let's move on. Let's move on. There's some great super middleweight action coming up as well. I've been doing a few videos about it. You probably know what I'm.
Exactly. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. Billy Joe Saunders is obviously going to be fighting Canelo Alvarez May 8th, which is, for me, obviously any fight of Canelo is huge. Yeah, I won't go far as saying that this is like AJ Fury, because I think obviously a lot of people have Canelo a massive favorite in this one. What do you make of Saunders and Canelo? What's your?
I think it's an interesting fight, and it's a fight that I called for as a fan about a year, 18 months ago. A lot of people were saying that Billy Joe's got the style to beat Canelo. Personally, I don't think he has. I don't think he's got the power. I think this fight, you see, when I was thinking about this fight, I was seeing it more a fight at middleweight. For me, that's Billy Joe's best weight.
Yeah,
he doesn't. He's won a world title, but let's be honest, it's a Frank Warren-handed WBO world title. I don't mean that disrespectfully. I'm just saying it as it is.
No, you're right. You're 100% right. Who did he fight? I'm a hardcore boxing fan. I watch boxing. Yeah. I didn't even know who Shifat Sufi was. I genuinely.
Yeah, I know.
Did you know who he was?
No, Shifat? I didn't. And I'm just the same as you. And I think at this fight at 168, I think Canelo does a number on Saunders. Yeah. I think, don't get me wrong, Saunders will have some success in the fight where I think he'll use his movement. He's clearly got some ring IQ. He's got some good footwork. He can get in and out of range without a problem. But I think you'll find at 168, he's not strong enough. He doesn't carry the power. I think he'll find Canelo harder to hit than what he imagined. I think Billy Joe's easier to hit than what Canelo is. So I can see Canelo landing a lot. I can see TKO happening here.
You know what, Ray? I've been saying this in my videos that a lot of Billy Joe fans keep saying that Canelo's not going to land on Billy Joe Saunders. He's going to be landing on fresh air. I said, I promise you, Billy Joe Saunders is going to be struggling to land on Canelo. Billy Joe is going to be hitting fresh air also. Yeah. Look, Canelo's got some of the best head movement in the game.
In fact, I would probably say, I mean, you know me, I'm a big Lomachenko fan.
I
would probably put Canelo at the top in terms of head movement, not just on the outside though, in the inside, in the pocket. He's really, really good in terms of his head movement, his lateral movement, his upper body movement. I can see Billy Joe throwing 3 or 4 shots, missing them, and Canelo just coming back from one. But I can see him doing that for 6 or 7 rounds before eventually he stops him, later on. I can see Billy Joe, where there's been question marks about his stamina, even at 168, gassing out.
Yeah, I totally agree. Let's ask you some questions. He's not as light on his feet at 168 either, BJS. Yeah, you just mentioned that.
Yeah.
So Hachi Boxer says BJS has never been stopped from my knowledge. Will Canelo be the first guy to stop him?
Yeah, I would say so. I think he can do it. I think he's got see, sometimes it's not always the one punch KO. I think Canelo, he's a very accurate puncher. He's a very hurtful puncher. So I think it's the accumulation of those type of punches, plus Billy Joe's stamina at 168 isn't the best.
No.
I think that's what will do the damage and that'll get Canelo the TKO.
You know what? I see this a little bit. To be honest with you, I don't even know if he'll have as much success. I see this a bit like the Khan fight. I don't think he'll get knocked out as brutally as Khan did personally, but I don't even know whether he'll have as much success as Khan did in that fight, to be honest. But Canelo in that fight, you know what? When I watched the Khan fight, I became even a bigger fan. You know, a lot of people say that Canelo was losing all the rounds, etc. It was the way Canelo started hitting Khan to the body, slowing him down. And Amir Khan became more, as you saw the rounds going on, he became more of a sitting duck for Canelo. And that was all down to Canelo's punch. Like, he punched him hard in the body. He was ripping those body shots in. Remember, Khan's a small man as well. He's not a big welterweight. He was ripping in those body shots. And Amir Khan, just after about 4 or 5 rounds, you could see that the knockout was coming.
Yeah. Amir Khan became a static target in the space of a round or two.
Yeah.
I mean, he was like a little he was like a great, like a little sort of like whippet dog, wasn't he? First 2 or 3 rounds. That's what he has over Billy Joe. Amir Khan had the speed. The speed of foot and match, where Billy Joe's feet are probably quicker than his hands. But that's one thing I like about Canelo. He's really, really smart. If you look at his fight against Callum Smith, he took away Callum Smith's left hand by hitting him. You know, you could see the bicep torn. And that was because he was targeting that, because Callum Smith has got a terrific left hook. He's got a terrific. So what does he do? He's Callum Smith's tall, target his body, damage his left hand, so he can't throw the left hand with any power, and he can counter over that left hand. Canelo's really, really smart, and it wouldn't surprise me if he does something like that. Target, because for me he's one of the best body punchers. Target Billy Joe's body, which I think is vulnerable. All these pictures you see him, man. People saying, "Oh, Billy Joe's looking in incredible shape." But that's not gonna.
No. Bodies don't win fights.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what? I wanted to ask you. I wanted to get your opinion on this, because I personally think this is also a big problem with a lot of the UK fighters. For example, we had Billy Joe and Callum Smith, right? For me, their preparation and the opponents that they've had in the past doesn't set them up for a Canelo fight. And here's what I mean by that. You look at someone like Khan, right? Look at his resume. Look at his resume. He had fought the likes of Devin Alexander, the likes of Paulie Malignaggi, Kotelnik, Barrera was faded, Zab Judah, Algieri, former world champion, Julio Diaz, Louis Collazo, right? These are all named world-class fighters that were former world champions, legit fighters. Now, Billy Joe Saunders and Callum Smith. Callum Smith fought a faded George Groves, right? And he had fought John Ryder, a fight which a lot of people thought he lost.
I thought Ryder won.
Yep. And Billy Joe has fought Eubank when Eubank was British level. He's fought who's the other? Andy Lee when he won the world title at middleweight, right? And then he's fought David Lemieux. These are his 3 notable names. You think that that's suitable preparation for going in against someone like Canelo, or suitable, like, if you look at all the 160 and 168 pounders right now today that are the best, we know who they are, right? Andrade, Golovkin, Morata, who's the other champion?
Like Plant.
Charlo. And at 168, there's Benavidez, there's Plant, as you say, it was Callum Smith, Billy Joe, Canelo. These guys haven't fought any of them. So how is that? Now you're fighting a guy who's better than all of the names that I just mentioned. You're fighting Canelo, who is the best, not just the best fighter in those weight classes, but the best fighter pound for pound. Do you think that's good preparation going into a fight with Canelo when you've not fought the top opponents in around the weight classes?
Absolutely not. So you've got that aspect, and then you've got the other aspect of the inactivity Billy Joe Saunders has had. On top of that, you've got his indiscipline between fights. So that's 3 very good reasons against a very dedicated. And let's get it right as well, Imran. Look how active Canelo's been.
Yeah.
I mean, he's had Yildirim in February, Smith in December. So for me, this fuels my argument that we're going to see a stoppage in this fight, because I don't think Billy Joe, once he steps in that ring, is been with anyone anywhere near Canelo's ability. And he's had ample opportunity to get other fights. He's been blaming Frank Warren. He's been doing this, but there's been many other reasons. And for me, it's what we always say about boxing is it is about levels, and you will see that on that fight night.
He was supposed to fight Andrade, and it was his own fault that fight failed the test, didn't he? So it's his own fault that he could have had a big fight. I don't know to be honest, I don't know what your take was on that fight, but I don't know whether he would have won that fight. Andrade is, for me, a really, really good fighter. So I don't know whether that would have been a good fight for him. I don't know what you think is about Andrade. And
I mean, I'm really interested to see how Andrade gets on with Liam Williams, because Liam Williams has improved a lot. Now, I'm not saying Liam Williams is at world level, but he has improved a lot. So I think that would be really interesting, because he can bang a bit, Liam Williams. But for me, I think you're right in the sense that Andrade is a real tricky fighter. But what I would say is that's the type you need. That's the type of fight you needed at that time. To see whether or not he was ready for the likes of Canelo to verify himself. Because at the minute, Billy Joe Saunders can walk around and say he's a two-weight world champion. But who's he fought to? You and I were growing up thinking if somebody's a two-weight world champion, they fought the names to solidify and cement their place. Unfortunately, Billy Joe, I'm not seeing that with him, and Andrade would have been a good yardstick to see just really was he at world level. He's got the world level, Billy Joe, via the back door, and he has got ability. I will give him that, but that would have been a very tricky fight for him. I could have seen Andrade winning that fight.
I'm going to ask you some questions that the subscribers are asking. Kevin Effect says the only reason BJS is undefeated is because he's preferred to snort PEDs, then fight Demetrius Andrade. I'm still salty. I was going to go to that fight in Boston.
I don't blame him. I mean, the amount of times Billy Joe Saunders pulled out on Martin Murray, those are fights that me and the lads were looking at going to because of the other fights on the bill. Billy Joe Saunders has got a little bit, from, in my eyes, a reputation for pulling out of fights, and I can see why some people think he's going to pull out of this one.
Hatchie Boxer says, if BJS loses, do you think he'll make excuses, or how do you think he'll be able to handle the loss?
And I mean this in all sincerity, with him coming from a traveling background, those guys don't make any excuses. So I'm hoping he doesn't. Because I think had Tyson Fury lost against Wilder, I don't think Tyson Fury would have made excuses. And certainly not the stuff that Wilder's coming out with. So to answer the question, I would like to think he doesn't, because, he's wanted the big fight. When he fought Martin Murray, at his interview afterwards, he was saying, I need the big fight to get motivated. So he's got what he wants. He's putting all these pictures up saying, I'm 100%, nothing's going wrong in camp, all that usual stuff. So for me, he's got no excuses. So I hope he doesn't make any excuses when he loses.
Ahmed, he's asking, Bivol v Canelo. Who do you think wins that?
That's a great fight, If that's, because it's an interesting one, simply because Bivol has said recently he can do 68.
Yeah, he did.
He said he can do super. So if that fight takes place at super middleweight, I would probably say at that weight, I would go towards Canelo. If it's at light heavy, I would probably go towards Bivol. And people say, how can he say that? For me, the weight of 7 pounds can make a big difference. It can make a big difference. And Bivol saying he can go down to 68. He's never fought anyone at 68. And he's never fought anyone as good as Canelo. You don't know. It's one thing making a weight. It's another thing fighting at the weight. So at 175 pounds, he's strong at that weight. He's been doing that weight. He's got no problems making that weight. I think he beats Canelo, who, for me, struggled against Kovalev. I had Kovalev winning winning that fight until Canelo pulled out the goods. So it wouldn't surprise me if Bivol was to win that on points at 75.
I'm gonna come to a topic that I want to discuss with you, but we were talking about this earlier today on Facebook. Frampton v Herring.
Yes, we were. Yeah.
And how do you think that fight goes? Richard's asking that. He's actually asked the question. How do you think that fight plays out? What do you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting fight. They both got similar records. They both lost twice. They're both about the same age, 34, 35. I think Frampton's got, I think he's got the most knockouts. I think he carries more power. Herring's tall, 5'10". He's got the longer reach. He's a southpaw. For me, I've watched a few of Herring's fights, and the one that sticks out for me is when he fought Lamont Roach Jr.
Right. Okay.
On pointing, he got caught with a right hand late on. I think if Frampton's got anything like he has left, and he's not past it, if he catches him with that punch, he could finish him. I think that's the difference. I think other than that, Herring can keep it long. But if Frampton has got anything left, I think he can either get inside, and I think he could hurt him with some power.
Right.
So for me, I'm leaning towards Frampton.
Right. I'm going to ask you another question from Anu Mia. He basically says, Imran, Errol Spence has come out and said he will not leave the division until he fights Crawford, when last week he said he will never fight Crawford. Does Spence actually want the fight? I think
the fighters want the fight. I think this is an example where it's who's guiding them. It's who's guiding them. I think they've got people sitting on their shoulders, whispering in their ear, saying, don't take that fight. Go this route. There's more money this way. Let that fight build. If you lose that fight, where are you going to go? So I think the fighters want the fight because they want to prove their legacy.
Right.
And ultimately, they want to be undisputed in that weight class, and they want to prove their legacy. They know, you see, now with boxing fans is, with social media and what it is now compared to what 10, 15 years ago, you can't hide. You can't do much hiding. And boxing fans, they will tear into boxers. So if there's any hint that one fighter is avoiding the other ones, we're not going to let that lie. You saw it with AJ getting booed when he didn't mention Fury's name after the fight. You could see the same thing happen with Spence. So I think he does want to fight. I think he wants to prove himself as the best at the weight before he moves up. So I think that Whyte fight will happen. It'll probably happen a bit later on, but I think it will happen. I think Spence wants it.
Ray, I wanted to ask you about a fight here in the UK that's probably 10 years in the making, or maybe 7, 8 years in the making. I think you know what I'm probably getting at. Fight Gamer asked me, can you talk about Khan v Brook? Amir Khan came out yesterday and said that he wants to fight Kell Brook and he wants to settle the score, etc. What do you make of this fight? What do you think there's any interest? Do you think people, I still think there's interest. I still think people would tune in. But what do you make of the whole situation regarding Khan and Brook? It would have been a monster fight back in the day. Huge fight 5-6 years ago. One of the biggest British fights ever. It would have been.
Absolutely. You took the words straight out of my mouth. I think at that time, that would have been a genuine stadium fight. That would have filled Wembley. That would have been done, good numbers on pay-per-view in the millions, no problem. Now I'm not so sure, Imran. I think it'll need a good main event. And I think it's pretty much like a core main event, not even a core main event. I think most fighters are pretty much, I would say, past it.
Way past it.
I saw both of them have recently, I say in the past sort of like a couple of years, have fought Terence Crawford. Both of them looked really bad in that fight. I know Amir Khan's had his recent win against Ib, but Brook for me is shot. But I still give him a good chance against Amir Khan, who no longer has that speed, no longer has the reflexes, and because he's defense isn't great. His chin's always been suspect. He's going to get caught.
He's
going to get caught. So for me, I can't see how Amir Khan wins that fight, which is a shame because I've got so much love and respect for Amir Khan. And I think, and I'll go on record as saying this, I think if these two guys fought at the peak, Amir Khan would have won that.
Really?
Yeah. I think
a lot of people actually have it the opposite. A lot of people say that Amir Khan wins now, but in their peak. So actually, I don't know. I think you would know that Amir Khan gets a lot of hate. So I don't know whether the people that are saying that genuinely believe that, or they're just saying it because they're just saying it because, you know, that's what they want to happen. Do you know what I mean?
I do. And I think as well, Amir Khan gets a lot of hate he doesn't deserve. We spoke about it earlier on. His resume is second to none. Second to none. And I think he's going to be like Calzaghe in the sense that people are going to start giving him the credit years after he's retired. But if you look at him, and I've heard a few stories from people who've been around in the amateur gyms that when they were both amateurs, Amir Khan was schooling him. I know it's a different sport, really. They've grown it, and I think, but one thing that does beat speed is timing. And Kell Brook had tremendous timing. Does he have that now? No. He's still got his power. He's not going to lose that. But I think, bro, when Amir Khan was at his peak, when he fought Malignaggi, when he fought Zab Judah, when he fought Damon Alexander, his speed, people couldn't live with that.
No.
So I think he would have beaten, because if you look at Maidana, that was at 140, but he survived that. He survived that 10th round. And I think he could have done something similar against Kell Brook. And I think had he won that, perhaps Amir Khan would finally get the respect he deserved from some of these haters. Some of them, not all of them, because I think some of them really do hold a real nasty grudge against Amir Khan.
I think you know what, it's nice to speak to, because you probably know that I actually got into the sport because of Amir
So
Khan.
did I, bro. Yeah.
I honestly, if it wasn't no Amir Khan, like I don't think I would be such a huge boxing fan. Like seeing this guy at 17 years of age winning a silver medal. And I was listening to Andy Lee talking about him. He goes, to win a silver medal at the age of 17. Andy Lee's a former world champion.
Yeah.
He was almost saying it in awe and shock. He was on a podcast like, that's unheard of. That doesn't happen.
It doesn't, man, because you're talking about a boy mixing it with the very best men amateur boxing. And if if people have ever boxed, what I would say is, that you've got to take into account someone's man strength, or if women are fighting, their women's strength, their adult strength. Because boxing is one of those sports.
Yeah, of course, physical.
Yeah, and he was dominating men. Yeah, he was dominating men, and he only lost to Mario Kindle, who's got to go down as one of the best amateur boxers there ever was.
Exactly.
So I would agree with Andy Lee there. I think that is an underrated achievement.
Yeah. The other thing is that as a pro, obviously Khan and Brook. Brook obviously fought at a lot low, like he didn't really step up towards really the back end of his career. I don't know whether it was his marketability. He didn't have a big name, so guys didn't want to. I do think that Eddie Earn and Sky, I think they wanted the big names to come over here because they don't want to go over and have pay-per-view fights in America because it's 4 in the morning. It affects their viewership.
Yeah.
So they wanted them to come over here, but those Americans didn't want to come over here unless they were going to get paid crazy money because like they were already getting paid a lot of money. They were managed by Al Heyman. And I think Brook missed a trick, because Brook was a very good 147 fighter, but he only fought at 147. Think about it. His career, he started his career at 147. And for about 10 years, he fought at welterweight, and he only fought, who's he fight at welterweight? Porter and Spence. Those are only the only two marquee names I can remember Brook fighting. I was like, you've been at welterweight for 10 years and you've only fought two top names. It's staggering. What a badly mismanaged career that is.
And there was a time as well in man where he fought eliminator after eliminator after eliminator. And I kept thinking to myself, another eliminator. At that point, he could have jumped on it and thought, you know what it is? If it was me, I would have thought, I'm just going to go to America, because America, I've always said, have got what I call better gatekeepers.
Yes.
So you've got your world level fighters. You've
Mm.
got those who are perhaps fringe level and those sitting below. If
Yeah.
you built up these record fighting those kind of names,
Yeah.
who would have known?
Yeah.
And I think you're right. I think it is a shame, and I think Kell Brook will probably have a few regrets. And I think that's probably why he took the Golovkin fight.
Yeah.
A, because the money was so good, and B, nobody, because of all those contractual issues, shall we say, nobody was fighting him. So I think it was a case of, yeah, I'll fight Golovkin, step up, make some money, and that's why that fight took place.
I think both Khan and Brook in that year sold away their, like, it sounds bad saying that, but I've obviously, as you know, I have massive respect for Amir Khan, and like I said, he got me into the sport and stuff. But I felt like that Canelo fight, man, he should have fought Danny Garcia. It was mandatory for his title. And honestly, I don't know what you feel about this. If Danny Garcia was in that ring that instead of Canelo, I believe Khan would have beat him on points that night. I don't think Garcia would have beat him. I generally don't. I think Khan would have beat Garcia and become a welterweight world champion. Kell Brook should have fought Jesse Vargas, become the unified welterweight champion, because I believe Brook would have beaten Vargas. Yeah. Then these two should have fought for a unification fight for 3 belts in the welterweight division. Imagine how big that fight would have been. Firstly, what's your take about Garcia Khan if he had fought Garcia instead of Canelo?
I would agree. I would agree. To be honest, I think the only reason he lost the first fight was down to Angel Garcia.
Yeah,
because he was really getting under Amir Khan's skin. Yeah. And I think it really, really affected Amir Khan. I mean, I had him winning the Lamont Peterson fight.
Yeah.
So I've got question marks over a couple of Amir Khan's defeats. Yeah, he got knocked out by Danny Garcia.
Yeah.
That was because he was really wound up. I think if he focused and he was mature enough, he would have won that on points. And for that reason, I think he had the beating of Garcia. And I think, if anything, Garcia probably didn't want to face him second time round.
He didn't.
Garcia, I don't think he was keen. So I would agree with that one. And I think Brook would have beat Vargas any day of the week, twice on Sundays.
Yeah. And then we would have had a huge unification fight, a massive fight. And imagine if Khan had beat Garcia, Brook had beat Vargas. Imagine the Khan and Brook fight, how big it would have been, and imagine the winner of that fight, especially if it would have been Khan. Imagine what legacy he would have left. Imagine unified at welterweight and welter.
Because I was just about to say, because he did that at light welter. So, you would have got all the accolades and the end, because there's been times when he's called out Pacquiao and Mayweather, and I thought, you haven't done it yet. You're trying to run before you can walk. But you would have had a right to.
Exactly.
Had he done that, you would have had a right to.
Yeah, it's sad. It's sad, But you know what? The thing is, Khan, his career early on was really good. Like Hachi Boxer saying, Khan in his prime was a beast. Khan at 140 was almost unbeatable. I think he should have stayed at 140 and stayed with Freddie. What do you make of that?
Well, for the reason he left Freddie, I mean, he was saying he didn't get enough time. He went to Virgil Hunter, and he thought Virgil Hunter was going to tighten him up defensively. I think that move, although I rate Virgil Hunter, kind of proved that you could never really change Khan too much. So it wouldn't have made a difference whether he'd stay with Freddie or not. I definitely agree. He should have stayed at 140. He could still make the weight. He was a big lightweight. I thought light welterweight was his weight. I thought that was his weight. He proved that his legs were strong at that weight. He was still quick, still sharp at that weight. His power was better at that weight. Whereas at 147, they could take his power a bit more. So he didn't look as heavy-handed. He was too much reliant on his speed. He can mix it a bit better. So 140 for me was his optimum weight. And I would have liked to stay him because he was getting good quality sparring at Freddie Roach's gym.
Right. I'm going to ask you a question before we move on to Josh Taylor and Ramirez.
Yeah.
The fact that we're on a topic of Khan anyway. Obviously, we've got a light welterweight right now that's a unified champion in Josh Taylor, who's doing very well. In 16, 17 fights, he's already a unified champion. He had good amateur pedigree as well. if these two, Khan and Taylor, I'm putting you in a difficult situation here because this is a tough question. If both of those two fought prime for prime, Taylor right now, because we don't know what Taylor's going to go on to do in terms of whether he beats. I know you think he's going to beat Ramirez quite comfortably.
Yeah.
But if these two had fought, just say when Khan, like you said, Malignaggi, Judah time, and the Taylor right now, who would you think comes out on top? Many people had their opinions. I saw Spencer Fearon heavily in favor of Khan, saying that he feels that Khan would have won. Many people had their opinions. What's your take? Who would you have favored in that?
Khan. I mean,
really?
His speed would have been too much. His speed would have been too much, and you know, don't you, that I rate Josh Taylor. I really think
you do. Yeah,
I think.
I remember when I first have a conversation with you. You said I remember the first ever conversation. We were going back and forth because you said. He's
going to be the next Crawford.
Taylor's the Whyte. I think you said the Whyte.
I said he's the. Yeah, I did.
Yeah. Do you remember that?
I did. Yeah. And you know what it is? I still think he's got the potential to be as good as Crawford. Yeah. I still think you know, he's got that potential. I just think that Amir Khan at his peak, there was, in terms of boxing, a bit. I mean, if you look now, I don't know what your opinion is, but my opinion, I've only seen one boxer outbox him, and that's Terence Crawford.
Yeah, and that was when he was shot to. That's
what I'm saying. But when he was at his peak, there's no one that can. You might catch him. And
yeah.
But it's a marathon at the end of the day, and if you don't get him out of there, you're going to be running after him because he's just going to run around that ring, pot shot, bam, 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 back on the outside again.
Yeah,
I think he would do it at the tail all night long.
Yeah, it would have been. I have the same opinion as you. I think people don't understand. Like, they think, a lot of people think I'm biased, but a lot of neutrals have the same opinion. They don't understand how naturally gifted this man was. Like, he didn't have the greatest brain, and you probably see that when you see him talk about on the reality TV show. He's probably not the smartest guy, but he was so naturally gifted. Like, you know, like, you got a gift, basically. Like, you just got a gift. You hand speed. It's just, and guys like you said, guys couldn't live with it. They couldn't live with it, honestly.
The thing as well is you've got to look at the genetics of the lad. I mean, he was tall. He had the right frame. You know, he had the wide back, broad shoulders. He really had it all. And for me, at his peak, his footwork and his hand speed, and he didn't need such a good jab because his jab wasn't like a weapon. His jab was a range finder. You could just flick out that jab because you couldn't see it. You couldn't automatically assume he was going to throw a right hand because as soon as he flicked up the jab, the right hand would come, and by the time you realize you got hit by the right hand, he was out of range again. You know, it was that style, and he was getting points that way. You know, and because of his speed, he could hurt people. Because, like I said before, it's the speed that kills, and that's what I always said about Amir Khan. But you're right. People do underrate his boxing ability.
Yeah, they do. One last question about this before we move on to Taylor Ramirez. Hachi Boxers asking, Khan v Pacquiao both in their primes, who would have won? Khan v Floyd both in their primes. I think Khan v Pacquiao would have beat Khan. He was a monster, and Floyd's Floyd, you know. So I personally, to be honest, even though I'm a Khan, I don't think he would. I don't know what your opinion is. I know a lot of people thought that he could beat Floyd because Styles made fights, and Malignaggi actually said that he felt Khan would beat Floyd. Roy Jones was also one of them that said that Floyd should stay away from Khan. But I honestly, and as you know, I'm a massive Khan fan. I think both of them would have beat him personally. But what do you?
I think Pacquiao would have knocked him out.
Yeah, I think Pacquiao.
For me, I think Amir would have won the early rounds. Pacquiao would have taken over, wore him down, and knocked him out.
Yeah, I agree.
Knocked him out, and just would have gone for headshots rather than Canelo using those subtle movements across the ring and targeting the body. I just think Pacquiao would have had it, engaged him in a war. Because the other thing about Amir Khan is he liked a bit of a tear up.
Yeah, he did.
I think Pacquiao, to prove his mettle, Pacquiao would have stopped him. Floyd
Hmm.
would have timed him.
Yeah,
Floyd's ability to counter and time people was, I don't think you're ever going to see anyone as good as that again. Second to none. So I think, you know, there was no way he could have beaten Floyd. Floyd would have won that every single time.
I agree. I agree with you there. Let's go on to Taylor Ramirez now. Obviously, at 140, it's the undisputed fight, May 22nd. It's obviously a very good fight. It's obviously for the undisputed. Taylor's obviously going, I think he's in his 17th fight, isn't it? 17th or 18th fight?
17th, yeah.
The 17th. Yeah, 17th fight. He's going for the undisputed, which is obviously some feat. You obviously rate Taylor very highly. How do you see this one playing out? I know I'm actually one of those that actually think this is a very tough fight for Taylor. I know you think he's going to beat him comfortably. I am actually one of those that actually think this is not an easy fight. But how do you, when you said on Facebook that you actually think Taylor beats him quite comfortably, what is it that you see in Taylor and Ramirez that you think it's quite an easy matchup for?
I think when you look at Taylor, I think, you know, because I remember you mentioned something about Apostle fight, but I think he's learned from that fight. I think he's learned in terms of how to handle himself. I always go back. I think it's easier in terms of on the outside, you're not getting hit. It's what you can do on the inside. And I think Josh Taylor, he's had that sort of battle with Regis Prograis, who I rate also very highly. And I think that just happened to be, unfortunately, you get. Well, I say unfortunately, sometimes you get the two best in the weight fight, and that's what we all want to see. But just because one loses doesn't necessarily mean he's bad. He's still a great fighter. He's just lost. So I think those type of fights have given him that experience to do a number on Ramirez. So it's not as if I've seen you know, a flaw in Ramirez, like I've seen a flaw in Herring. I just think Josh Taylor just has that edge. And I think that's what he'll show on fight night to win that fight. And I think he'll win it comfortably.
Do you think? Go on.
I think Ramirez perhaps isn't as solid in terms of. I mean, I know he's done a job on Morris Hooker, but I think Josh Taylor's different. Hooker's taller. He was. He didn't use his advantages as well in that fight. He wanted to exchange, and we've seen recently, you know, against Virgil Ortiz, that even at 147, you know, he should just stick to his boxing. I think Taylor, with what I'm saying with those fights, he can come in the inside, he can prove he can mix it. He knows that now. It's a bit like when a fighter's done 12 rounds for the first time. They know it, and it gives them that confidence. So it's you know, he's going to get a confident fighter. He's going to get a fighter that knows that he can't lose. He's got that mindset. And I think you're putting on Ramirez, and I think you'll make it very uncomfortable for him.
Do you think he stops him?
I mean, if he did, that's a big statement to make. I'm going to go for points. It would surprise me if he stopped him. You know, because that for me, I rate Ramirez. I'm not saying Ramirez is a terrible fighter. I just think Josh Taylor's that much better. But if he does stop him, I would say, you know, wow. But for me, he's got it in his arsenal, because I do rate Josh Taylor highly. But I'm going to go for points on this one.
Taylor wins. He becomes undisputed, moves up to 147. Now we're talking about the real boxing. How do you think he gets on with any of those 147? Forget about even Spence and Crawford and Ugas, who are the champions right now. But Danny Garcia, Thurman, Porter, Virgil Ortiz. We've got Ennis, who's a real rising star in America as well. How do you think
Evanesian as well? You know,
Evanesian,
because he'll probably be knocking on the door for world title. I think, you know, I know people are talking about Danny Garcia moving up and stuff, and I think if Danny Garcia can be persuaded to stay at 147, I think that's a winnable fight for Taylor. He's not going to be beating Crawford and Spence. He's not. But he could still make some noise. He could make some noise. And I think, you know, there are a few, you know, talking about that lad Ennis. Talking about Virgil Ortiz. who think those would be terrific fights. I wouldn't make him the favourite in those fights because these guys are fully fledged welterweights.
Yeah,
and
they
as
are.
I've been talking, size is going to be make a big difference, particularly if the guy moving up isn't known as a puncher. Josh Taylor isn't, I would say, is a single-handed puncher, but because of his accuracy, that's what gets him the power. So it's again down to accumulation, his accuracy, rather than being a one-punch KO artist. But I think he can mix it in not the top two, but the level below. I think he could mix it. I think he could mix it in that level.
Fight Gamer says Taylor v Thurman.
Wow, that's a great fight.
Yeah,
that's a great fight. I would probably say Thurman would win that.
Yeah.
If Thurman could get himself back to what he was pre-Pacquiao, if his mind's on it, because Thurman, when he, for me, when he was one time as opposed to when he was Thurman, this guy looked the real deal.
He did.
And I wouldn't write him off for that fight against Pacquiao. For me, he would start as the favourite in that fight against Josh Taylor.
So Taylor said he wants to fight. He would love to share the ring with Manny Pacquiao because he's one of his idols, and I don't blame him. Everyone would want to fight Manny Pacquiao. Who wouldn't want to fight a legend? I don't think that fight happens personally because what's in there for Manny? I don't think he'd want to fight Josh Taylor. But supposedly Taylor's wish comes true. His dream comes true. Do you think he beats Pacquiao at this stage?
It's a tough one. I mean, I really do rate Josh Taylor. And even though I may say somebody might start as a favourite, it doesn't necessarily mean that Taylor can't come on in that fight. I think it all depends on how they build him into that weight.
Yeah.
If you just say now, okay, let's just say he beats Ramirez. Next fight at 147, I would say Pacquiao would, I would probably say he could beat Pacquiao. He could beat Pacquiao. He can match him in terms of his work rate, speed, and a lot of things. If he fought the right fight, I think he could. But for some of the other ones, it depends on which fights he has leading up to them. But it's an interesting fight, the Pacquiao one, because Pacquiao he still have his speed and he'll still have that power, as I said earlier on. And you're sure he's not going to lose that. But for me, Josh Taylor's his speed's underrated. I don't think people realize just how quick he is, and he's got his skill set, his ring IQ is there, and it's improving. It's getting better, and I think that goes down to his earlier coaching from Shane McGuigan. So I think he's got a lot of tools he can take in that fight, and I think he give Pacquiao a very difficult fight.
Before I get on to Ahmed's question, I want to ask you. We had another great fighter who was at 140 that could have fought, prime for prime, another fantasy matchup. Taylor v Ricky Hatton. Who would you have favored in that one if they both fought in their primes?
You see, that one would have been a class fight. I mean, Ricky Hatton was probably the best body puncher this country's ever produced. So prime for prime. I mean, for me, I could see it's one of those ones where I could see Hatton trying to bully him earlier on, but I can see Josh Taylor taking over. I can see Josh Taylor getting used to him and not fighting Ricky's fight. So for prime, I mean, I can see Josh Taylor winning that.
You know what? The crazy thing is that Ricky Hatton's obviously he's very popular amongst the British fight fans, and I think whenever you say something about Ricky Hatton, a lot of people would get upset. Like I remember when Malignaggi said that he felt that Khan was a better fighter than Ricky Hatton.
Yeah.
A lot of people started giving Malignaggi, even though Malignaggi said I'm friends with Ricky more than I am with Amir, but I fought both guys, and I'm giving you my honest opinion that I think his skill set, his resume is far better than Ricky Hatton, and I think if they had fought, Khan would have beat him. I think he even said he would have stopped him. And personally, I'll be honest with you, I think if Ricky fought Amir, Josh, and Kel, I think all three would have beat him. Like, I'm just giving you my honest opinion. I think all three, I would have favored. I think in potentially in on him. Like, I'm talking dominate him and beat. I think Taylor might have been tough, like you said, first couple of rounds, but I think Taylor is a little bit more versatile than Ricky. I think Ricky was a lot more, like, as Freddie Roach mentioned, one-dimensional. He did the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, that's it, and that's what I was going to say. I mean, for me, Ricky Hatton, his feet were slow, and he always made the same mistake in terms of he would cock his hands before he would throw it. I think if you're fighting somebody who's elusive and as quick as Josh Taylor or an Amir Khan, they're going to pick up on that. Later on in the fight, they'll get used to that. They'll counter that. And I think if Ricky gets hit too often with those counters, he goes. He goes. And I think, what you do is, Ricky's going to cock his hands before he throws a left hook to the body. Step back, step to your right, counter it, throw your right hand over. You're getting. So I think these are I think people look at Ricky Hatton and go, yeah, he was very physically strong. He was a great body puncher. But then you've got to see it holistically. Look at his footwork. When he sets his feet, Ricky was one of those fighters where he knew what he was going to throw because of the way he set his feet, the way he shaped his body up, and the way he would cock his hands. So if we can see that as fans, what do you think the fighter in the ring is going to see? And if you're quick enough, you can counter it. And I think Taylor and Khan have got that speed. Brook's got that timing. So yeah, I would agree. I would think all three would beat him.
Fight gamer. I mean, Ahmed's asking, who in the history could beat a prime Roy Jones Jr.?
Does he mean who now,
or just that he's just basically saying who in history, like who in history could beat prime Roy Jones?
Okay, so we'll say prime Roy Jones at middleweight, super middleweight. I mean, if it middleweight, I think Hagler would have given him a good go.
Yeah, Hagler.
Yeah. I think Hagler would have given him a good. Hagler had a great chin.
Yeah.
Hagler didn't stop walking forward, and Hagler had some power as well. He was a good puncher. Carlos Monzon at middleweight. That would have been a terrific fight.
What about Gennady?
Golovkin.
Yeah. Prime.
It gets similar to
Hagler.
Similar to Hagler. What Golovkin did, and I know you this because I know you're big on this as well. Is there's a difference between cutting off the ring and following an opponent. I don't think many people understand that. Golovkin is a pioneer. If you want to know how to cut off the ring, you got to watch Golovkin. So I think Golovkin again would have been a great opponent for Roy Jones. He had power as well, equal power to Roy Jones. Also as well, people like Jerome McClellan. Because that guy could punch. That guy could punch. You got the likes of Julian Jackson. So there's lots of people I would have liked to see Roy Jones with, because that's my one thing with Roy Jones. He didn't have, although he was great in his prime, he didn't have that great dance partner.
Yeah, he didn't. Yeah, when
he had Bernard Hopkins too early on in his career, and obviously that rematch, those guys. But he didn't have anyone at their prime as a rival. And I think even though he's a great Roy Jones, that's the one thing that lets him down. Yeah.
Do you think? Just say, I know when Roy fought Joe Calzaghe, Roy wasn't Roy really. Do you think if Calzaghe had fought him in his prime and Roy was in his prime, who do you think would have won that?
Good question. That. Yeah. I'll probably lean towards Roy Jones.
Yeah.
And I'm a big Calzaghe fan.
Yeah.
I'm a big Calzaghe fan. But Roy Jones at his prime, those reflexes would have been on point. The power would have been sharper. And I think he would have got the Calzaghe.
Yeah, he put him down, didn't he?
Chin.
He put him.
Yeah, he did, and so did Hopkins. And for me, I think that was because you see Calzaghe, he had a big Indian summer. He for someone who's a super middleweight, he didn't really show his best fights until he was 34, 35.
Yeah.
So by the time he fought those two guys, he was a bit, he was old. So obviously he stepped up. He stepped up and from super middleweight to light heavy. But I think against a prime Roy Jones, whose reflexes would have been on point, I think it would have been too much of an ask for Calzaghe.
Hachi Boxer says, who are your top 5 pound for pound boxers right now, excluding Pacquiao?
Canelo, number 1. I've got to put Fury in there because for me, Fury still, he never lost the titles in the ring, and he still beat the man who beat the man. So for Fury's got to be in there. I would put in terms of achievements, I would put Crawford in there. Even though I see Spence beating him, but in terms of achievements, I've got to put him in there. I've also got to go with Inoue.
Yeah. What a fight.
I think because of his weight, I don't think he's getting the credit that he deserves. But he's and what you'll notice as well, Imran, if you look at his resume, he's knocking out world champions, sparking them out, whereas most people take them to points. Donaire fought the fight of his life.
That was the best fight I saw. That's one of the best fights I've seen.
Yeah, that was an amazing fight.
Yeah.
So he's got to go there because for me, I can see him going up through the weights. And then for me, last one, I would probably say it's probably either going to probably go for number 5. Probably go for I'll probably put Tio in there.
Tio,
yeah.
He's great fighter as well. Jessica's asking, who is more well known in the UK, Canelo or GGG?
Canelo.
Correct.
I mean, for me, the thing with Canelo is no one's picked up is look how many British fighters he's fought.
Yeah, he has. Yeah, true.
From Ryan Rhodes, Matthew Hatton, he fought
Amir Khan,
fought Callum Smith, Amir Khan.
Yeah.
He fought Liam Smith as well.
Yeah.
So with all those British fighters, Golovkin is probably better known here than he is in America. But for me, Canelo's the biggest star in world boxing.
Yeah, he is. Who's the biggest star in world boxing, Canelo or Joshua?
Canelo.
Fury. Let's put Fury in there as well.
I'd say Canelo if you're talking about boxing.
Worldwide.
Yeah. Marketing, I'll probably lean towards Joshua because of the money he's getting from his sponsors, etc. But world boxing, and that's what I was on about. When you were talking about Crawford and Spence on sort of like household names in America, but Canelo pretty much is because of the influence he's got over like Latin America. So for me, the biggest star in world boxing is Canelo.
Ahmed is asking James Toney v Hagler.
Wow. He's mentioned I've seen it. He said a couple of points in the chat. He's mentioned a couple of good things.
Yeah.
James Toney. Let me just say this: one of the best defensive fighters I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Great fighter defensively. I just think at his prime, Hagler was busy and come forward. So I think that style would have won him that fight. He would have sat on Toney's chest. You would have outworked him. You would have taken his best shots because Hagler had a great chin. Out of his fights, he had more than 60 fights. He was only put on the floor once. So for me, I would have to go with Hagler.
Right. There's a Roy Jones would beat Canelo easy. Do you agree?
Nah, not easy.
Not easy.
Nah, prime. At middleweight, not easy. I mean, Canelo's so difficult to hit. And I think the reason why Kovalev and Amir Khan were having success is because of their jabs and just getting out that range. Roy Jones, for me, I would never seen him saying, "Oh, he had a great jab, range finder," and then he was looking to throw a power shot, but because he was so quick, he was great at throwing his lead power shots, his lead left hook, his lead right hand. But I don't think he would have caught Canelo with those shots. Canelo would have seen him. You would have seen him a mile off. So I don't think that would have been an easy win for Roy Jones.
Richard Brown's asking Mayweather v Leonard at welterweight prime.
Leonard. I mean, I love Mayweather, and those two are my favorite boxers. And add Sugar Ray Robinson for my favorite one of all time. And I love Mayweather, and I think, you know, we were very, very lucky to see him at his best. But Sugar Ray Leonard could do it all. He could do it all. And look, you know, if you go back to that Hagler fight, for people that don't know what I mean, how tight he was in the ninth round when he had someone sitting on his chest throwing power shots. He could, you know, at welterweight, he had that power as well. You know, I think his power has been greatly underrated, because Leonard had a lot. He had a lot of skill. His footwork was unbelievable. But I think he would have. Well, I know he would have won on points against Mayweather. But it may have been different if he got, say, Mayweather down at super featherweight, because he was a different type of because he was a different type of fighter then. You know, so if you got him against one of the best ever at super featherweight, it would have been slightly different. But I don't think he would have been busy enough against Leonard, and that was the way to beat Leonard. And I don't think he would have. I don't think he would have been able to knock him out, even though Mayweather's got, for me, he had the best lead right hand in the business out of his stance.
What about Naz? Naz in his prime. Do you think? See, I have my opinion about Naz. I have my opinion about Prince Naseem. I think he was obviously a great fighter and stuff, but I do think some of the British fans, they love him a lot and they rate him very highly. But when you look at his resume, right? When you look at Naseem Hamed's resume, and I think you probably know where I'm going with this, is that although he beat good fighters and he beat world champions, when he fought that elite pound for pounder, because Barrera was a great, he's a legend, really, let's be honest. And he was by far the best name on Naseem Hamed's resume. I know he fought Kelly, and he beat Kelly, which was, again, a life and death fight for Naz. Wasn't easy. In terms of, do you think Naseem would have been able to beat Morales, Pacquiao, Barrera in around those weights? Like, I know he lost to Barrera, but a lot of people say that he wasn't taking it seriously when he fought Barrera. I don't think he would have beat Barrera personally anyway. But what's your take about him fighting those legends?
No, I don't think he would have done. I think the one advantage Naz had was his speed and his power from his unorthodox stances, his angles. I think against those elite fighters, I don't think it would have come as that much of a surprise. I think he can get away with that at a certain level, but against the very elite, I don't think he would have. I don't think he would have been able to stop them. I don't think he would have caused it. He would have. Don't get me wrong. His style would have caused him a few issues, but they would have figured them out a lot quicker than anyone else. So he stops those at the level below. But it's a bit like Tyson. When people say Tyson, why is he not in people's top 10? It's because when he stepped up to the very best, he didn't beat them. He couldn't, because they could handle him. And Naz is a bit like that, where he was a bully, and he was great knockout power for those just below that elite level. But against the elite level, it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough. And what they had and what he lacked is obviously why he retired straight after the Barrera fight. I know it was to say his hands, but I think he fell out of love with boxing after that.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree with what you're saying about Naz there. So Ray, is there anything else you want to you want to add? Anything else you want to say? I know you've been here for almost 1.5 hours, man. I appreciate you being on it.
It's just flown over. It's just flown over. You know,
Yeah.
it's I've watched a lot of you know, I've always watched your videos, and obviously I know I follow you on Facebook, so I know you put on some good stuff. But I think for me is you know, in terms of up and coming fights, obviously I'm really looking forward to Fury Joshua. That's a game changer. You know, and I hope the Spence Crawford fight comes off. But in terms of the weekend fights, Ted Cheeseman. That's you know, if I was going to say one thing, it would be on that, because I'm not going to shy away. I thought JJ. Cheeseman blocks his face. I thought defensively he's poor, but he proved me wrong, and I've got to admit that. You know, I'm prepared to come on here and admit that. I don't think he beats Fowler, but I was happy with it. I think it was a great fight. He's always in a great fight, Cheeseman, and I thought he boxed well. And I think if he can maintain that, stop getting himself into wars, he can go on and have a good career. So that for me was it, so far has been the fight of the year. I know we're only in March, but that's going to take some beating. So I just wanted to mention that.
You know what thing about Ted Cheeseman you mentioned? I think, you know what the problem is with him? I think you're right. You bring up defensively, he's not great, but I just feel fighters like Ted Cheeseman that have wars like that back to back to back, it's not good for your health. Like I always felt when Khan fought Maidana and Peterson, I think fights like that aren't good for your health. Khan said after the Maidana fight, he had memory loss. And you have fights that are that hard, and Ted Cheeseman's had quite a few now. He's had quite a few that he's been bashed up in certain fights. He's had some tough wars. I don't think that's good for any fighter for a long. I don't think your longevity in the sport is going to be long if you're fighting fights where you're having wars all the time. I just don't think you're going to be able to do it for a long period of time. That's why Mayweather was so special, and his longevity
exactly. And I think as well, it's the advantage and disadvantage of Cheeseman. What I mean by that is it was an advantage in terms of he had experience from those fights. And that's, for me, the only reason why he beat JJ Metcalf experience. But those wars are going to bite him in the bum, because his body's not going to be able to take that. You know, he got battered off Sergio Garcia. He, you know, he's had a tough fight against Sam Egerton. He had a tough fight against Kieran Conway, who, no disrespect to him, can't punch.
Wasn't that a draw? The Conway fight was a draw.
Yeah, but it was still a tough fight. It wasn't an easy fight. In the Fitzgerald fight as well. His body's taken punishment. Yeah, it's quite early on in his career. So for me, I see where you're going. And another point as well, someone just mentioned it, Willie Hutchinson. You know, people, that's the thing. I mean, at British level, that's why I don't always you don't see me on Facebook harping on about these prospects too much. Because
they were going on like Joe Calzaghe. They were saying he's the next. Literally, I saw they were saying, "Oh, he's like the next Joe Calzaghe." And it was Lennox Clark he fought.
He stopped in 5 rounds.
He got obliterated. Like it was a bad knockout as well. It was like, you know, like, and he was giving it a big talk, because I saw and them going back and forth, and he goes, "There's no way on planet Earth you can beat me." He said that to Lennox Clark. I just think I feel like a lot of these young prospects that are being hyped up in, you know, today's era. A lot of them are falling short. Look, Josh Kelly, Willie Hutchinson. I know Josh Kelly was a bit higher level than Willie Hutchinson. But if you look at some of these guys that are being touted to be the big stars, they're being exposed at lower levels that you don't expect them to be exposed at.
That's it. And it's a point that, you know, perhaps we need to have a debate about at some point is, are our fighters as good as what we think they are? Because Willie Hutchinson, and there's another lad who Matchroom have got, called John Doherty, another kind of Scottish kid, big puncher at super middleweight. He got beat. I think he got beat by Jack. Was it Jack Cullen? something Cullen.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for me, Willie Hutchinson, first round, second round, he was bossing that fight. Third round, something happened. It kind of turned around, and then he just went from there. So it depends on how he recovers. It depends on, you know, how much does he really want it. But for me, he's either going to go one or two ways. You know, he's either going to learn from it, push on, or he's not. You know, we saw it with Cody Davies when he got beat. Like heavyweight, everyone's saying that he's going to be the next Joe Calzaghe because he's from Wales. But he got beaten. You know, you're not seeing much of him. Mark Heffron, he got beat off Liam Williams, and he got beat again off Bentley. You know, so you never know. The same thing could happen with Felix Cash when he steps up and he fights Bentley.
He's a good fighter as well.
Yeah. So a lot of these prospects, for me, the jury's still out with them because a lot of people have been raving on about Dennis McCann and Brad Foster. Brad Foster, he looked okay in his last fight I saw on Friday. Dennis McCann looked good, but we'll have to see when these guys step up. Because that's the other thing for me is you're dead right with what you're saying. When they do step up, they're getting found out.
You know, Carl Frampton recently, I'm going to ask you about Hamza Shiraz. I don't know if you come across Hamza Shiraz.
Yeah.
Carl Frampton said that if this kid don't go on to become a world champion, I will eat my hat. He said this live on BT. And I saw that fight that he had, and no disrespect to like Hamza, like he might go on to become world champion. I don't know, but I don't know what he saw from that fight. Obviously, Carl Frampton's a world champion. He has a lot of knowledge about boxing. You know, he's done it, he's lived it. But I didn't look at that fight and think that I'm looking at a future 154-pound champion. But apparently, Carl Frampton thought that this guy looked like mustard and he's going to be a world champion. I don't know what's your take on Hamza Shiraz. I know a lot of people are saying that he could be the next Amir Khan. I don't see any similarities there whatsoever.
Not in his style. Not in his style. I wonder if that's more of like, you know, his background sort of coming in there. Yeah. But, you know, Frampton said the same about Jack Catterall.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, he said, this guy's going to win a world title. And we're still waiting for him to, because obviously he's in line for the winner.
For the
Taylor Ramirez. Yeah. So I think you will hear a lot of fighters. You know, I mean, lots of people tip Frankie Gavin for a world title. We all know what happened there. So you will get fighters, particularly if they're in the same camp, or you know, say that this fighter is going to be win a world title, or this fighter is going to do this, is going to do that. But often it very, very rarely happens for one reason or another. Recently, I've heard a lot of people tip Lee McGregor, people like Alex Arthur, you know, who knows the sport up there in Scotland. And I can see possibly that may happen. Lee McGregor's a good fighter. But, you know, with Shiraz, I kind of think that there is ability there. I'm not going to say that there's not. There is ability there. But I don't see him at that world level. But then again, I said the same thing about Ricky Burns, and he ended up being a three-weight world champion. So, yeah, it depends on matchmaking and all that kind of stuff. But I don't see any similarities between him and Amir Khan.
I don't see any. I think even if they're talking about in terms of, even if they're talking, like, I know what you're saying about the background. They're both British Pakistanis and stuff. So people are comparing them. But when I first saw Amir Khan, I could tell the kid, he was special.
Yeah, you could.
I don't have that same, like, see, a lot of people think I you know, say a lot of favorable things about Khan because from my background, but Hamza Shiraz is also from my background. But when I saw Khan, the reason why I became such a fan, obviously his style is so exciting, is because I saw something special. Like, I knew even when he lost to Prescott, he's going to be a world champion. There ain't no stopping him.
Yeah,
I can't sit here right now and tell you that I feel like Hamza Shiraz is going to go on to become a world champion. You know, like, you see someone and you're like, no, this guy is good. This guy's great. He's going to be a world champ.
Because he's got the tools.
If I was to sit here and say, I think Hamza Shiraz is going to be a world champion, I'd be honestly lying to you. Like, I don't even know. I don't even know if he beats Cheeseman. I don't even know if he beats Fowler. I know it's very early on in his career, and we can't really judge. Is he going to go on to become a world champion? It's hard to say, isn't it? It's hard to predict.
It is. You are right there. Some fighters, and I've which fight have I looked at and said could possibly do it? It's probably out the current crop coming through Joshua Buatsi.
Oh,
and that's pretty much it, really.
You know what? I actually thought the same with Buatsi, but you know what? I saw his last fight against it was against Silic. Was it Silic? Mario Silic?
Yeah, the Croatian. Yeah.
And I was like, wow, he got touched
caught,
up.
He got caught.
And then I started having my doubts, and now he's moved to Virgil Hunter, which I think's a good move for him, because I think Buatsi is the type of guy where he's very focused.
He's very intelligent, yeah.
Yeah, and he's that type of. I think he will fit well with Hunter, but I started having my doubts, and then I started thinking, if Joshua Buatsi fought Callum Johnson, I don't know if he wins that fight. If he gets touched up like that by Callum Johnson, who's a big puncher, I don't know. So that's why I started having my doubts about him as well, even though I thought he was really good.
Yeah. It's funny, isn't it? Because we're talking about like fighters that you can see would win a world title, and then there's underrated ones. Yeah. And I've seen someone mention about Jack Catterall, and I think Jack Catterall's a talent. Yeah, I just think that perhaps he's probably slowed down a bit because of the fights that he's had. So he's probably not as progressed as what he could do. But Callum Johnson, for me, he was unlucky against Beterbiev. He was unlucky to come against the best light heavyweight, but he gave him a scare. Callum Johnson, for me, out of all the light heavyweights that aren't world champions, don't sleep on Callum Johnson. I think he gives people nightmares. And I think Eddie Hearn was waiting, because Callum Johnson's 36. A lot of people don't know that. I think he was waiting for Callum Johnson to age before making that fight with Buatsi. I think he knew Callum Johnson was very, very dangerous for Buatsi.
Do you think Buatsi would beat someone like Joe Smith Jr.?
No.
You don't?
No. I don't think he's got that. I think what he showed, even though he's got a chin and he can come back, he showed he can come back a bit from adversity. I think he showed that when it gets put on him a bit, there's a little bit of panic there. He overcame that, which is good, because we're seeing people like Joshua struggle to. He overcame that. But I think against a better caliber opponent, because Smith's at that top level for light heavyweight, he could capitalize on that. And I don't think give him Buatsi any breathing space to allow him to come back in that fight. Yeah,
Smith is like relentless. He's like a pressure. He just stays on you like an absolute bulldog. He's just there all day.
He's on your chest. He's on your chest.
And he's tough. He's strong. I saw him. I first saw Joe Smith fight when he fought Fonfana. And he obliterated Fonfana. And he's an absolute beast. Then he destroyed Bernard Hopkins. I know it was
he knocked him out the ring,
with 51-year-old Bernard Hopkins, but still, the guy's relentless. And I don't know whether Buatsi, honestly, there's a lot of sharks in the light heavyweight division, There's there's Beterbiev, Bivol that are holding belts, but even below those guys, like there's guys like Suleiman Barrera and,
Ramirez, that Ramirez, they've got Ramirez there. They've got
Gilberto Ramirez,
Yeah, they've got Aleda
Callum Smith has now moved up.
Callum Smith's moved up.
Badou
Jack's still there. John Pascal is still there. For me, I've always said, if I was gonna, just an imaginary thing, do a World Boxing Super Series, I would do one for lightweight and I'd do one for light heavy. Yeah. People say, well, why not welterweight? I think welterweight, you can kind of work out their own. I think the thing with light heavyweight is they would all beat each other. They would all beat each other. Take Beterbiev out, they would all beat each other. They've all got power. They can all, they can all hurt each other. It just makes it exciting. Throw Callum Johnson in that mix. You've got Bivol as well. There's so many. There's about 8 or 9 good names, and even the guy that Beterbiev beat, the guy from Ukraine, Gavodich. Yeah, he's talking about potentially coming back. Right. So it would have to win, because he was a WBC world champion. Yeah, WBC. As we've been saying about Wilder, they don't give out that for a laugh. You've got to work for that. So it's an exciting division, and it's an explosive division as well.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah, I think Beterbiev at light heavyweight, I think Beterbiev is obviously the man to beat. I think he's
he's the one for me.
If Canelo moves up to light heavyweight, do you think that that's a potential? I think we had a discussion about this as well. That he'd be daring to be great. Basically, he would be doing what some of the other guys, did fighting him.Maybe. I reckon that would be an epic fight.
I saw you mention that on I think one of your shows last week.
Yeah.
If Canelo stepped up to 175 to fight the very best Beterbiev, he's the best for me. He would be daring to be great. I don't think he wins that fight. I think at some point, Imran, someone's just too big, too strong, too powerful, and at some point, Canelo will exchange. He might nick a few rounds here and there, but what I saw against Kovalev was Canelo wasn't busy.
Yeah, he wasn't.
He wasn't busy.
No, he
Kovalev was a busier fighter.
No, he was.
Beterbiev is... Got to remember, the yard fight still took a bit out of...
Kovalev.
Yeah, it did. So Beterbiev, he's fresh. He can throw more punches. Canelo at 175, he's not going to throw a lot of punches against Beterbiev because he's going to be wary of what's coming back. So Beterbiev is going to be the busy fighter. He's going to be the ring general. He's going to be the effective aggressor. Canelo might have the better defense, but Beterbiev is going to have the clean and harder punching. So for me, Beterbiev is going to win that fight.
I want to ask you one question before I let you go, because I know you probably got places to be. We've been on it.
Me, I can be on here all night. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You love. You're a bit like me. We talk boxing all day.
Yeah.
I was having this discussion with a fan, like a fan from Scotland, and he was arguing with me the fact that he feels Josh Taylor deserves to be higher on the pound for pound list than Arthur Beterbiev. And I said, mate, firstly, in terms of, he was trying to argue that Josh Taylor was a great amateur and stuff, and he did this good. I was like, mate, do you know Beterbiev had like 400 amateur fights and only lost like 5 or 6? Do you know how stellar amateur? He was basically he was saying that Beterbiev can't box and Taylor's the better boxer. And I said, mate, he's had 400 amateur fights and only lost 5 or 6. Taylor hasn't got that kind of record as an amateur. And then he said, Taylor's record as a pro is more impressive than... I said, they're both unified champions, and actually Beterbiev's done it a little quicker than Taylor has in 15, 16 fights. I was like, Beterbiev's KO'd everyone. It's hard to argue that a guy that had a points decision against Poster, which a lot of people thought were close, the Prograis fight, which was very close, and the Baranchik fight, which is on points, when Beterbiev had a unification fight with Govzik, who had destroyed Stevenson, who we all know was a formidable light heavyweight champion. Do you think that Josh Taylor deserves to be higher on the pound for pound list than Beterbiev?
Not now, no. I think Beterbiev is really, really underrated. I think partly because he's not really active, is he? Not because of the lockdown, but previously. But I think that's because people generally don't want to fight him. They just don't want to fight him. You know, for me, what would make Josh Taylor go above Beterbiev is he would have to do the business at 147. The business at 147 because he beats Ramirez. Okay, that still doesn't put him above Beterbiev that he's undisputed, because he's undisputed in that one weight. You see what I mean? Where if you look at somebody like Crawford, he's won belts at lightweight, 140, then something 147. Beterbiev, he's the next division, the cruiserweight. You know, you're talking about an extra 15 pounds. He's probably physically not going to do that. His only option really is to clean out everyone he can fight in light heavyweight division, which he's done. So for me, Beterbiev is above Taylor unless Taylor can do the business at 147. I believe Taylor can. It'll take time, but he's not there yet. So for me, Beterbiev is above him in the pound for pound list.
It says here, one of them's asking, Beterbiev will KO Boatsi or Bivol. I think we'll probably both.
I would agree with that 100%.
And Jessica says, do you think Porter beat Spence?
No. For me, Spence is the best at 147.
No. He's asking, do you think when they fought, do you think Porter won that fight?
Oh, sorry. No. I mean, that was a great fight.
Yeah, it was.
You know, I think even if I fought now, Spence would win, and I thought at that time I had Spence winning. It was a close fight, but I had Spence winning. I liked the better work Spence was doing.
Yeah.
And I felt it had a greater, out of the two punches, Spence's punches had a greater effect on Porter than what Porter's did on Spence.
Yeah.
And that's it. Sometimes it's the way you judge your fights, and that's what I look at when I'm judging my fights. I don't think you could say anyone had the better defense in that fight, because it was like a back and forth sort of fight. Cool. But for me, the effective aggression was coming from Spence. So I scored the fight to Spence. So for me, Spence won that fight.
I was gonna ask you another question about, was it the welterweight division? It says actually Ramirez saying Manny Pacquiao v Terence Crawford eyed for ESPN pay-per-view on June the 5th. I don't know if that's news coming out. I don't know whether the Pacquiao Crawford fight is gonna happen. I feel like they've got someone like Porter lined up personally. I just think the Pacquiao Crawford fight is too big for them to keep it under wraps, for us not knowing that that's just going to be announced like that. But Bob Arum put everyone in like confusion, because he basically said we've got a big pay-per-view fight lined up, right? And when you say big, people automatically start thinking that is it Manny Pacquiao and Crawford?
They go for the very top, and I mean, you know, Thurman and Porter are still big names in that division. So they're the biggest names, because if we say Garcia's gone up, Pacquiao may have been he's kind of in semi-retirement. We would know if it was a Spence fight. So yeah, and that's what I was saying earlier on. If it's not going to be Pacquiao, it is going to be a Porter, which isn't a bad fight. It's not a bad fight. Crawford wins that for me. If he stops him, I'll be surprised. I'll be really, really surprised. I don't see that happening, but I think he wins it on points.
I think if Crawford can do a job on Porter, even if he batters him and beats him up for 12 rounds, and if he stops him, Crawford would have separated himself from everybody else that has beaten Sean Porter. Because let's be honest, everyone else that has beaten Sean Porter, it's been close. It's been nipped up.
Yeah. You're right. No one will have ever done that to him. In that, you see, when I was saying earlier about the Spence Crawford fight being a pendulum fight, you can swing. You can see people swinging to Crawford if he does a job on Porter, because no one will have ever done that to Sean Porter before. And you can't say he's finished or anything like that, because clearly he's not. He's still got it, and he's one tough cookie, Sean Porter. He's still active. He'll come forward at every opportunity. But Crawford's got the better skills in that fight. I love his switch hitting. And it depends on how to say, because sometimes he comes out and he's orthodox. Sometimes he comes out and he's southpaw. But I don't see him stopping him. But I like you, I'd be really, really surprised if he did.
Yeah, I would as well. I would definitely be surprised if he can stop someone like Porter, because I don't think Crawford's a big welterweight. I don't think I know he's knocked out Benavidez, and I know he knocked out Horn, Amir Khan, and Khan was like a funny stoppage where he kind of stopped himself.
Yeah.
I just don't think Khan and Brook could. I think they were too past their best, and they were shot worn, and he kind of was just too sharp, too quick, and he was, I think he's already an elite fighter in terms of his boxing abilities on another level. Even in both their primes, it would have been, Crawford might have been a slight favorite in those fights. So I just think that they weren't at it. So I don't really think we can really say how good Crawford is at 147, because he fought, I think you would probably say the best names he fought at 147 were two guys that were way past, I wouldn't even say it's close. It was way past their prime, really. What would you say Khan and Brook were when he fought him? Probably at 20% of what they were, or even probably less.
I'll probably say for Brook, I mean, for me, Brook's got nothing left whatsoever. Brook and Khan have got nothing left. Brook was a shell of himself.
Yeah.
He was not the same guy that fought.
Porter.
That was him at his peak. But
Yeah,
even when he fought, because the Golovkin fight took a lot out of him. So even when he fought Spence, he still had a lot left. He was still maybe at 85% of what he was, but he wasn't even that coming into the Crawford fight. So yeah, I would agree. You know, those were gimme fights when you look back at them now.
Yeah.
They were gimme fights.
What's Crawford's best win?
He's had some. If you look back at the weights, though, he's had some very interesting. I still think the Ricky Burns fight was a great win because he came over to the UK and he did a job on Ricky Burns, who people had as the favourite. And I think that gets overlooked because it's Ricky Burns and people are looking at him now and think, oh, it's only Ricky Burns. You know, against you know, when he had, I still like that win against in Dogno.
Oh,
when he body shot. When he
Dongo beat Ricky Burns, didn't he?
Yeah.
And Dongo beat Ricky. Otherwise, Burns would have fought Crawford again. If Burns had beaten Dongo, he may have been the one that was fighting Terence Crawford for the undisputed.
And he probably would have got knocked out. Yeah. But for me, because that for me, although the Ricky Burns fight brought him into our attention, that unification fight there really, really announced him as, wow, this guy is special and can probably go up to 147 and do a job there. You know, and then you got other fights, and the way I look at boxing is I look at the Benavidez fight in terms of people say, well, why? Because of Benavidez was bigger, physically stronger. And for me, it proved that he didn't have to rely on skill. He could outbully a bigger and stronger opponent who was decent when Benavidez was coming through. Him and Frankie Gomez, when they were 18, people were tipping them as future world champions. And Benavidez has got quite a decent record. So when you look at those wins as well, they tell you that he can do it against a bigger, stronger opponent. You know, so he's had lots of different wins at different weights for me, which are up there. So it's difficult to pick one particular one. Some fights are just more entertaining, but if I had to pick one, it would have to be, you know, the unification at 140.
Last question before I let you go. It's been a long time. I know you.
But it's been good though. I've enjoyed it.
It's been great. It's been great. Conor Benn v Samuel Vargas. I don't know what you make of Conor Benn. He's obviously fighting April 10th or 12th, I think. But yeah, what do you make of that fight? A lot of people think that Conor that's going to be a tough one. Some people were even saying that Conor Benn may end up losing that fight because Vargas, although he's lost, he's lost to the very, very top. You know, like some of his losses come against Danny Garcia, Errol Spence, Amir Khan. These are guys that we would have expected him to. Virgil Ortiz. These are guys that we would expect him to lose against. You know, but you know, he even when he came last, I know Amir Khan wasn't in his prime, but even dropped Khan. You know, and he. Like, you know, if you were a Khan fan that night, you were on the edge of your seat thinking, what's going on here?
Yeah.
So do you think this is a tough fight for Benn? Do you think this might have come a little bit too early?
It's a good question again. I think it is a tough fight for Benn, but I think Benn's ready for it. I think he's had, because he didn't have that amateur experience, he's turned pro on Matchroom. Every fight he's had live, I think they've built him up the right way. He's had those tough fights against the Frenchman, Payno. He's had those good, tough learning fights. And you're right, Vargas has only really lost against the very, very best. So I think if Benn goes and stops him again, you know, it's almost like a theme in the night. I would take my hat off to him.
Yeah.
But I think he's getting Vargas at the right time.
Right, yeah. He's at the end.
He's getting him. Yeah, I think he's getting him at the right time. I think what this fight will turn out and prove is that this has been a clever bit of matchmaking.
Right. Okay.
I don't think he'll have many struggles in this fight. I'm not saying he's going to walk all over easy and get him out there in the first round. I think what we're now seeing with Benn, he's becoming a patient fighter. He's picking his shots better. He's sitting down on his punches better. Yeah, he's knowing when to time his shots, when to exchange, when not to exchange, when to let the combinations go. I think if he carries on that learning, I think he'll win this fight. And I think this might be his coming out fight. His coming out party.
They're talking about if he wins a fight with potentially, like I know Eddie Hearn's talked about Avanesian. He's even talked about Khan as fights. Do you think that if he beats someone like Vargas, that if those fights were to be made, like Avanesian or even Khan, do you think he would win those fights?
He'll beat Khan because Khan's finished. Yeah, and that's just simply because Khan's finished.
Yeah.
You see, this is the thing. I know I tipped Josh Kelly to beat Avanesian, and I tipped him to beat him. Obviously, I got that one wrong. What I would say Avanesian is he's for quite a small welterweight. He can punch. He's got a very similar style to Benn.
Avanesian.
Yeah. He's very similar. I think what it is for me is Avanesian does the things that Benn does a lot better.
Right, yeah, I'd agree.
So I think Avanesian would win that fight because the things that Benn does, which I mentioned, Avanesian's a lot better at, and I think Avanesian could get the Benn early. I think he'll get to him. I think probably between the 4th and 6th round. I think he'll get to him. I think Avanesian's again one of those fighters I mentioned earlier, which actually cuts off the ring rather than just following off his opponent. And I think he makes it difficult to move. Josh Kelly was struggling because he couldn't move. He was winning the first 2 rounds at ease, but by the 3rd round, he realized I can't move. He spent so much time in the 2nd round and so much energy trying to knock out Avanesian. Avanesian wore him down. I can see him doing that to Benn. He would easily take away Benn's jab. He would take Benn's best shots, get to him, cut off the ring, stop him moving, and get to him and stop him. I think Avanesian will win that fight. So I think with Benn, you've really got to match him carefully.
Yeah.
Because some of these guys, he's not ready for yet. So he is going to need, and that's why I think the Vargas fight's a great fight for him, because those are the fights that he needs.
Fight Gamer saying that I like to see Jesse Vargas v Benn if he wins. Also, Fight Gamer says Josh Kelly would beat Benn.
Yeah, probably. Styles make fights. I would agree with that. People talk about Josh Kelly not being at the right weight and stuff. I think there's different. I think Josh Kelly isn't very physically strong. I think he could do 147. He can perform at that weight. I just think he's not physically strong. But then again, that's not his style. His style's to be on the outside, hit and not be hit. That's the art of boxing. I think he can get away with doing that against Conor Benn, because Conor Benn, even though he's similar to Avanesian, he doesn't do what Avanesian does as well.
Right.
So I think he's fighting a worse version of Avanesian. So I think, he can beat Conor Benn. I think Josh Kelly, yeah.
Ray, it's been great having you on.
Thank you very much for having me, bro. I really appreciate it.
You know what? What I will say is that I loved every second of having a chat with you. I think it was brilliant. It's great to have somebody on and talk boxing, because you know what? Sometimes it can be a bit dull just, talking to a camera and speaking to someone about boxing. Literally, I can see you have the same passion as I do. We could go all day. And what I will say is that obviously I think this has been brilliant, and I think Dave, a lot of the subscribers have enjoyed it as well. When the big fights happen, like a Conor Benn, Vargas, or Saunders, I'll have you on. If you're watching those fights, I'll have you on my live stream. And I can have more guests, because I can have up to like 6 guests. So we could have Luke on. We could have my brother on. It'd be great just to get this a debate going, because more minds, more different opinions. It's just a great watch and great viewing.
Definitely. I mean, like I said, I mean, you've always had great debates on on your on your channel and on your
Yeah,
Facebook page as well.
yeah.
And yeah, I would love to come on.
Mm,
I know I've got sort of like I'm setting something up with Carl. I know he's tagged you in it
yeah,
on Facebook. He's got his own sort of like show as well.
right.
So you got people like him who really know the stuff. So
Yeah,
yeah, I would absolutely come on. I've enjoyed every minute of it.
yeah, yeah,
I would say subscribers are great.
yeah,
They're really insightful. I can see
yeah.
by reading some of the comments in here.
Mm,
And I've enjoyed every second. I think we both got that love for the game. It's
yeah,
funny how Amir Khan has been our inspiration and
yeah,
he's been our go-to boxer really.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah,
Probably, how old are you?
I'm 32.
All right, so I'm
Yeah,
28. So we're
yeah,
around the same. We're around the same age. So
yeah.
so he would have been when we were younger. He would have been when we were probably getting into boxing and watching it and starting it. He would have been the guy. He would have been the guy that actually was, because at that point when Amir Khan got to the top and when he was coming through, there wasn't anyone in Britain. There wasn't any marquee name in Britain at that point.
Yeah,
So
you're right.
that's why he became such a big star. And you see his millions of followers on social media because there wasn't anybody at that time from Great Britain. Ricky Hatton was on the way out. And Amir Khan, I remember Colin Hart saying that Amir Khan's our next marquee fighter if he can keep his chin away. Or so, he said something like that when Pacquiao knocked out Hatton.
That's a typical.
There was no one. There was literally, I can't think of anyone around that time when Khan was coming through. So I think Khan had his window where he was on top and there was no one else in Great Britain. I don't think we had any. Did we have any world champions? Probably Hay and guys like that were around, but they didn't have the name that Khan had for some reason.
They didn't have the pull power, and that's why Amir Khan was able to get on his sort of like debut on ITV and go from there. I think for me is when Amir Khan 17 at the Olympics, I was 15, and for me it was like, okay, I'm gonna get myself to a boxing gym because he was, and then from there he had his wins. And then Carl Froch came on the back of that. Calzaghe was going on the end of his career, but Calzaghe, and Amir Khan, I would say Amir Khan was more popular. I'd stick my neck out and say that. I say it in my chest because Amir Khan was really, really popular.
I would say he's more famous. I wouldn't say he's more popular amongst the British public. I'd say he's more
at the time. I think he was because he was all over ITV. When he won his silver medal, the papers couldn't get enough of him. Now it's slightly different. I think he's getting a lot of hate now for.
I agree
for certain reasons. But at the time, he was on the crest of a wave. And he was getting people like myself because he was the only boxer from Team GB to go to those Olympics. So to come away with a silver medal, it was his achievements. Let's get it right, which led to the success in the Beijing Olympics with James DeGale and all those characters 4 years later.
Groves mentioned this when he was fighting Badu Jack. Groves said, I remember Groves saying that you've got to give a lot of props to Amir Khan. He goes, Amir Khan's performance at the Athens Olympics was the reason why people like myself got the funding. Boxing wouldn't have got funding if he didn't perform the way he did.
That's what I'm saying.
So George Groves paid homage to Khan, saying that, you know what, you got to give that guy a lot of respect because the guys like me, James DeGale, like you just mentioned, wouldn't have got the opportunity if Khan didn't do what he did. So in that way, he's a pioneer. I remember you mentioning this as well in a thing on Instagram. You commented on one of my pictures when you said that actually Amir Khan's a pioneer. Yeah, because of that in itself is a huge thing that because of his performance at the Olympic Games that the UK boxing got more funding. Otherwise, if he didn't do what he did, boxing might have been dead for 4, 5, 6 years.
Of course it was, because we were struggling after what happened with Ollie Harrison. We were looking for a new hero. And Amir Khan, when he was on the likes of ITV, that was on peak time. That was watched by people who were watching stuff like Emmerdale. So, the woman that lives 2 doors down the street who doesn't know anything about boxing, but she knew who Amir Khan was. And you're right. That's how, when he performed so well, the lottery funding increased for Team GB. And, you got the likes of James DeGale coming through, Billy Joe Saunders, who we've been talking about, Frankie Gavin, Joe Murray. Toney, Jeffries, all these kids, and then the funding increased again, and then you've got the likes of Anthony Joshua, and then the rest is history. So we owe Amir Khan a lot.
Yeah,
we owe him a lot.
I don't think that gets talked about. And a Fight Gamer says there would be no Joshua, DeGale, or Campbell if it wasn't for Khan.
I would agree wholeheartedly. Yeah. I would agree with that. I mean, how could you say it otherwise? I mean, what the guy's done for amateur boxing in terms of Team GB, he's made Team G. We used to be so far behind the Cubans, the Ukrainians, the Uzbekistans, the Kazakhstanis, the Russians. We were pretty much like America in terms of Olympic boxing. Now we're one of the, we're one of the favorites.
Yeah, we're one of the top. Like,
we're one of the top nations.
If we don't win a medal, it's like, what's going on
there? Yeah.
That we're gonna have 1 or 2 medals. And it's like, I just think we're both around the same age where we actually saw him growing. We were growing up and we were getting into boxing, and then there's this guy. I had no interest in boxing. The first boxing fight I ever saw was Tyson v. Lewis, but that was just a casual fight because it was so big.
That's the first fight I saw, yeah.
I had no interest in boxing. It's only when, like you said, when Khan won that silver medal, actually when that Olympics was going on, because people started talking, especially in my community, that there's this guy, Amir Khan, he wasn't expected to do anything at the Olympics as well. He was expected to be knocked out. Like, he wasn't even, I heard that he wasn't even expected to go through the qualifying rounds. So what he did was a bit of a shock factor because nobody was expecting it. No one was expecting Amir Khan to do what he did. So it was kind of more, whereas like guys like Joshua and DeGale, I think there was more expected. I think there was more expected from them because he was so young. I don't think there was a lot expected. So then I think, like you just said, his popularity went through the roof and he became such a big star after that. And it's kind of never, I know now he gets a lot of mixed feelings. People have mixed feelings about him, but I think it was a phenomenal rise for a British fighter. Like, he's the only guy, British fighter, even Joshua, look how big a star he is now. He's the only guy that I can remember that I don't think he fought on an undercard. I think the only undercard he fought on was the Mayweather undercard. I think he's been main bill from his debut. He's been main, which is incredible because, like I said, you don't get that nowadays, do you?
You don't. And I think one of the things I would go back to Amir Khan is as an amateur, he was very, very highly rated in the ABAs. I know he got knocked out by Craig Watson and a couple of other defeats, but he was very highly rated. He was obviously a special talent. And I go back to the fact that he was just a boy at 17. He didn't have his man strength. So to go to the Olympics and dominate the very best men in the world, it's unheard of. You were saying about Andy Lee. It really is. When I look back at it now, I think, Lomachenko done it twice at 2 different weights. That's a different one. But people say to Lomachenko, but the guys that he fought in the Olympics were kids. I dispute that. He fought Domenico Valentino, the Italian. He was no kid. He was about a similar age. He fought the Brazilian. He was about a similar age. So these guys in the Olympics, the men, and if you look at how it works now in Team GB, you don't get many teenagers. We had Billy Joe in Beijing. He was 18, but you don't get in the men's. You don't get many teenagers going to the Olympics. They tend to be round between 22, and as they get older to the heavier weights, they tend to be later on in their career. Look at Luke Campbell. He was he 23, 24 when he was in the Olympics.
Yeah, he turned pro late, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. I think he was 26 when he turned over.
Yeah.
They are late on. It just goes to show how phenomenal that achievement was for Amir Khan.
Yeah. Crazy when you think about it. But yeah, Ray, it's been brilliant having you on. I definitely want to get you on more, especially when the fights. When the fights are happening, I think then we'll have a huge audience. A lot of people tune in on Fight Night.
Yeah.
I was wanting to get you on in the Dillian Whyte fight, but I was having trouble with the software, and I thought, you know what, I want to get you on when I know I've got everything sorted, so it's not no problem with the software. And I think this has been brilliant. I've really enjoyed doing it.
Yeah, so I mean, and it's I've always wanted to come on. As soon as you said I'm gonna have people on, you could
yeah,
see me coming on. I wanted to come on because you've got that passion for the game, knowledgeable as well, very knowledgeable, and I think that comes across. That's why people keep tuning in. So just keep doing what you're doing, bro, because the people are tuning in here for a reason.
Yeah, cheers, Ray. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you coming on, and definitely have you on again.
Okay, all right.
Cheers, Ray. Take care.
Nice one. Take care. Yeah.
Take care.
Bye bye.
So there you go, guys. There you go. I hope you guys are well. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I hope you guys enjoyed that interview. If you want more interviews, I definitely have more people on. How did you guys find that? How did you guys find that the interview? I thought it was great, and I thought Ray was great. I thought I really thoroughly enjoyed it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Hope you guys did as well. Hope you guys enjoyed Ray on there. I think he's very knowledgeable. He has a lot of knowledge about boxing, and I think he has a lot of passion for it. And hopefully I can get more of you on. And if more of you want to come on, just let me know and I'll get you on. Because I want to get more of you on. I just think it's more enjoyable and it's great. Bullet Kuyambo, what's up, brother? I hope you're well. I hope you're good too. But yeah, how did you guys find it? Fury Joshua, who wins? Last question. I've got Fury winning. You guys know that I got Fury winning that. Bobby, how are you, Bobby? Is this pay-per-view for Andy Ruiz? Chris? Yeah, it is pay-per-view. $49.95. It's ridiculous. I don't know how that can be pay-per-view. I think it's ridiculous because that shouldn't be pay-per-view. I think that should be free to air personally, but it is what it is. It's very informative exchange of ideas. Yeah, it was great, Bobby. It was great. It was great. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. It was fun. It was great viewing. And I really enjoyed having Ray on, and hopefully I can have someone else on tomorrow. It's just great viewing, I reckon. But yeah, I'm gonna make a move now. I think the live stream was great. I think it was a long live stream, and tomorrow I'll be on around the same time. And hopefully all of you guys tune in, and we'll have another live stream tomorrow. Who does Ray have? I didn't ask him. I'll speak to him. I think Ray had Fury winning. I remember speaking to him on a Facebook. I think Ray has Fury winning against Joshua. I think he believes Joshua's the more complete fighter, to be honest with you. So I think he's picking Fury to beat Tyson Fury to beat Joshua. He feels he's more versatile. But yeah, I think that's Ray's opinion on it. But how did you guys find it? How did you guys find the live stream? Was everything clear? Was the volume everything clear? Could you hear us clearly? Was it to listen? You and Ray doing live commentary to fights will be good to listen to. Yeah, 100%, Richard. I'll definitely get him on. I think he was brilliant. He was definitely brilliant. Hopefully I can get him on if he's free for the Vargas fight. Vargas Benn. I'd love to get him on. I think he was really, really good. I really enjoyed it. And hopefully you guys enjoyed it. More Ray was good stuff. It was good stuff. Hopefully the Crawford announcement is the Pacquiao fight. Hopefully it is, bro. Hopefully, Adam, it is. I would love to see. I will hopefully come on someday. Yeah, Fight Gamer. I want you on, brother. I want you on someday. When that day could be this week. Just let me know. Give me, and I'll get you on for sure. I want you guys on. I want as many people as I can get on. I want all of you on. Like that, you guys can give your opinion about it. You don't have to be for 2 hours. It can be for 30, 40 minutes. It is what it is. But I really enjoyed that. I think this is going to be one of many that I have moving forward. But I hope you guys enjoyed it. I will definitely be doing live commentary on fight night with Ray and other. I can get up to 6. I can get up to 6 people. I'm not gonna have 6 because I just think it's a bit too much. I'll probably max have 4, me and 3 others. But yeah, I think it was great. I think it was great, and hopefully I can have more of you on. I've obviously gonna hopefully live stream this to you, Facebook as well, which will be good moving forward. But yeah, I really enjoyed it, guys. I think it was brilliant. I really enjoyed it. I think it was a great. Hopefully you guys found it a great watch as well, because that's the main thing, you know. You guys watching and enjoying it and finding it a great watch, because I feel like it's back and forth and we're having a debate. We'll disagree on certain things. I'll ask questions that you ask. But, you know, sometimes when you get into it with somebody that watches boxing and that's passionate about boxing, you just get into it and you go all day. It was brilliant. It was brilliant. And I really enjoyed it. Guys, I'm going to come on again tomorrow, hopefully with another guest tomorrow, maybe talking about something else. I'll be tuning in around the same time, around 7:30-ish, right? So make sure to join. Make sure to tune in. And I'm gonna take a leave now. I appreciate everyone joining the live stream, and I'll see you all tomorrow, same time at 7:30 again. So all the best, guys, and I'll see you tomorrow.